It all kicks off with this wildly popular autumn game, Noblesse Fantasia, and then everything goes off the rails. But here's the twist, yeah. It's called an autumn game, but it's really a full-blown magic action fantasy world where their whole mission is simple: wipe out the strongest villain, Tilty. She's the final boss, the one everyone has to go up against. He swears that's how he ended up giving his whole life to her by becoming a sword saint, chasing destiny like it was a command, and just like that, everything flips right here in this peaceful mountain village. After a brutal exchange, Sold crumples onto the ground. Then his dad leans in and tells him the match is basically finished, but the kid won't listen. His dad yells for him to stop. Yet he yanks himself back up and snaps, "I'm not done yet." He rockets back in, screaming for his dad to get ready, while the older man lunges to slow him down. A villager strolling past pauses in surprise, watching the two of them laugh while gossiping about how the Master Ranger is always fired up. And right nearby, an old lady spots it too, wondering what all that hard-working little lord is up to, training every single day. Turns out it's the dad who starts sweating first, and he blurts out, "Can we please take a quick breather?" But Saul just stares him down, locked in, and tells his dad to crank the training up way harder than this because he can't cast a single spell, so he compensates by going all in with his sword. All of this chaos is going down in this tiny, peaceful village right out in the middle of nowhere. And just like that, you realize this whole hidden place is tucked right inside the kingdom of Albert. Welcome to the wild world of Noblesse Fantasia, and it turns out this kid was born into the Ranger family, just minor nobles, tucked away out in the middle of nowhere. Sold snaps to the truth. He didn't just wake up in this world, he's reincarnated as a sword. Right when he was still a tiny baby, his new parents chose a name for him, Sold Ranger. He remembers jolting awake for the very first time and locking eyes with two strangers who were just staring back at him. But once they lifted him up, he snapped everything into place just by catching the names and jobs people were blurting out around him. Eventually, he finally clocked the truth: he wasn't in some real place at all, just a random corner of the game world. Specifically, he's the Baron's son, and somehow that changes literally nothing about the actual story. He just couldn't shake the feeling that there had to be a legit reason the universe dumped him into a game world like this. And just when he's dreaming big for this new life, his dad yanks him over like, "Time to come back to reality." Sold's dad snaps him over, voice dead serious, then drops the bombshell. It turns out to be the absolute worst news hits a gamer's ears. His dad reveals the Ranger family hasn't been able to use magic for generations, and it's worse than he thought. Soldo's dreams got smashed to pieces because this world is powered by magic, and every day you're fighting beasts to save it all. And once it hits him that he can't use a single bit of it, the whole world crushes down. He just blanks out, staring into nothing. Like, in a world like this, if you can't wield magic, you're treated like you've got no worth, like you were never meant to matter. But even then, he refuses to quit being special, clinging to destiny like it's real. Then he tears out of the house, screaming for his dad to come to see what he found in the attic. Attic Sold thrusts an ancient scroll into the light, staring at the warrior in it like he's finally hit his big break. He's so sure he cracked a secret technique, demon god-style swordsmanship, but then his dad just stands there, visibly freaking out. The scroll lays out a wild power: you can cram demonic energy inside yourself, then turn your own soul into a weapon. It says that from this exact stance, you can unleash a deadly killing move called Kama Isin. Sold is absolutely buzzing, convinced he's cracked a secret game mechanic hiding right in the real world, and he's sure this technique is the one true key for people like him, someone who can't use a single drop of magic. He raises his sword and screams that this is his destiny, then vows he'll master the demon god style, but his dad snaps him down right away and tells him he's totally got it wrong. The whole thing blows up as the dad finally fesses up that the scroll is a family heirloom handed down for generations, but then he blurts the truth. Turns out the secret technique is nothing but a big fake scam. Turns out every guy in their family for the past 3 generations has been obsessed with cracking that scroll during training, and not one of them could ever make the move work for real. Dad says the ancestors likely spun those stories to plant a little false hope in the kids who didn't have magic, just so they'd keep going, leaving. He just sold it standing there, stunned because that legendary scroll was nothing more than a fairy tale trapped in ink and paper. Sold stares at the scroll, utterly crushed, trying to make sense of the nightmare that it could be a fake, but his dad shuts him down with a grin, saying it's totally fine if he can't use magic or that exact style. He tells them their family has guarded this peaceful land for generations, and honestly, that kind of life is way better than they ever imagined. Walking away, he left the two of them frozen in silence, staring out at the endless, massive world. Then Sold finally snaps out of it and screams that his dad is lying. The scroll can't be a dud. He doesn't believe a word of it, and he explodes, swearing he'll prove it's real no matter what happens. And from that day forward, he hits the training grounds every single day right under his dad's watchful guidance. 3 years slam by, and Sold has grown a lot, but somehow he still can't get the demon god style to work. Dad stares him down and says the move is nothing but a sketch in some book. Then he asks if he's finally ready to quit, but Saul keeps on swinging, grinding through every hit, refusing to let his dream die. Sold locks eyes with his dad and roars that he'll never quit, then slams it home he's staying on this path. And his dad just lets out a tired sigh, tells him it's cool, and lets him keep going until he's finally satisfied. But for now, Dad orders them to head home fast because if Mom finds out, trouble's coming, and Mom immediately shrugs, says, all right, and agrees to call it a day before it turns into a bigger mess. Staring at his parents and the maid back at the house, Sold finally realizes somehow he's landed with the one truly kind family in all of this. And honestly, life is amazing. Big family dinners, then afternoon horse rides tearing through the fields like a dream come true. He spends his days fishing with his dad, while his mom lounges on a picnic blanket cheering him on, and he's straight up saying he's got zero complaints about this life. But once the sun sinks behind the estate and the stars light up the sky, the whole vibe flips fast and it feels like everything's about to change. Soled lay awake in his room, eyes locked on the ceiling, gripping the truth that he desperately wants something more to believe in. So yeah, there has to be a damn good reason he got reincarnated as a nobody noble in this world. Outside, the sky darkens to steel and a brutal rain pounds down on the quiet house. Sold blurts to his mom, "Where's Dad?" And she snaps back that he's split out early for a meeting with the other nobles. She looks totally thrown off, wondering why country nobles like them were even invited. Then it all takes a darker turn. But Saul just locks eyes with the rain outside his window. And for a second, he's totally swallowed by his own thoughts. He tells her he's heading out to train solo today, and she snaps back, warning him not to push too hard when the weather's this ugly. With every step, he can't stop thinking about it. He's been sharpening his sword practice every single day, and somehow he's already 10 years old now. He keeps wondering if the day will finally arrive when he can unleash the demon god style for real. But he slams his doubts out of his mind, telling himself that wallowing in negativity won't change a single thing. He forces a grin, clings to hope, and swears that the style he dreamed up is really his destiny. Out of nowhere, something grabs his attention and snaps him to a sudden halt. He bolts toward the trees, convinced that weird sound is lurking deep in the woods. Rain comes smashing down in the dead middle of the woods as Sold barrels through the trees. He slams on the brakes for a heartbeat, gasping for air because he spots a young girl sprawled face first in the mud and his brain just can't process what he's seeing. He barrels over, drops to his knees, and blurts, "Are you okay?" Then demands why she'd be out here in this storm, but then he spots her bare feet and his gut flips like she might be a runaway. The girl lets out a shaky groan and Soul begs her to stay with him as he looks on. Staring at her tear-soaked face, he tried to piece together where in the world she even came from. Right then, something flashes before his eyes and he jolts to a complete stop. A weird energy starts whipping through the air and then boom! Sora realizes the rain is freezing mid-fall right in front of him, and he's got zero idea what's happening. Sold goes totally rigid, eyes snapping wide as he scrambles for words, but all that comes out is, this stammers out, "No way, this can't be real." And he keeps insisting to himself that none of this is happening while, as he gapes at the monster's fangs, his mind races. Why the hell did it have to show up here, of all places? He plants his feet right there, blocking the girl from the massive shadow. When he squints closer, it hits him. This isn't some random enemy at all, it's the game's end boss, the one he already crushed. And he starts spiraling, convinced he was reborn for a purpose. Then he can't stop wondering if this nightmare is all he gets for having faith in the wrong thing. As he steps into this brand new life, a wolf looms over them, and he can't stop wondering if this is where his fate ends right here, with him dying without any. He can't even make sense of any of it because he's convinced it's impossible. And he just can't stand the idea that it all has to end this cruel. So he lunges in, snatches the girl, and throws them both out of the way as a colossal blast of ice detonates and crashes into the ground right where they were standing a second ago. The blast slammed them into the ground. Tilty groaned through the pain, and Soul just stared like his brain was trying to catch up. But Tilty locks eyes with him and blurts, "I'm sorry." Then admits the slave traders didn't just fail. They freed that monster on purpose just to hunt her down again and finally grab her before she slips away. She starts freaking out, begging him to run. We've got to get out of here right now until he finally hears her. To run as fast as he can so he doesn't end up hurting for her. Sold is completely stunned as she crumbled, tears pouring and staring at the wreck like she couldn't breathe. When Sold locks eyes with her face, it hits her gaze as exactly like the ones belonging to the biggest threat from that game he worshipped, the legendary villain, Tilty Magister. She was the one everyone in the game despised, always tormenting the main character and pulling off vicious, awful things, but here's the gut punch: no matter which version of the story you pick, she's always doomed to lose it all and crash into total ruin. After crushing the game, the real truth about Tilty's past finally clicks into place, and when she finally looked around, every single person she'd ever loved was already gone, so she was left alone. With nothing but silence. She came into the world as a mistress's child, and the world treated her like poison, so she scraped by in total poverty until her mother was brutally murdered, and then they seized her and chained her to a life of slavery. A noble family finally arrived from her homeland, swept in, and rescued her, but the horror didn't end. Every one of them was brutally slaughtered as well. Tilty started hating the entire world because everything it gave only brought misery to the people around her. Before she knew it, self-hate swallowed her whole, and just like that, she plunged into heartbreak so deep she became the the most hated villain in the whole world when everyone feared the moment her name was spoken. Sold freezes when he sees the crying girl, and the second he locks eyes with her, he realizes she's got the exact same gaze as the villain from that game. He can't stop thinking that if he leaves her alone, something in her will snap. And that realization smacks him like a wrecking ball. So he yanks his sword up and plants himself right before the chain girl, shielding her with his life. A giant wolf crashes in, looks everyone dead in the eyes, and finally admits he can see what's really going on while Soul blurts out what the heck that creature even is. Like, he can't stop. Staring at the beast on the sales floor, he realized this is exactly the moment he was born for. Trembling through tears, the girl looks up at him and blurts out, "I'm Tilty." Soul finally gets it. He wasn't just born into this world as some random noble. He was brought here with the freedom to do anything he wants. He leans in and tells Tilty straight to her face that he's the one who'll rip up her destiny and rewrite it. He erupts with a deafening yell as he gets ready to throw down. Tilty just freezes in pure shock. His sword is actually starting to glow. Soul unleashes a massive burst of energy that crashes straight into the giant wolf. Tilty just stares from the ground as it hits. As the light fades and Soul finally clocks the truth, he didn't realize it yet, but he accidentally hit a secret part of the game that almost nobody ever discovers. And then he starts breaking down exactly how to unlock this power. You can't just guess you've got to spar with a sword on purpose. Lock your feet in place without budging and slam the enemy's strike straight in the face. But the real magic hits when you've got a savage, desperate need to protect someone. Tilty just stares completely as the cell blood oop starts filling his whole body with that wild demonic power, and you can feel it kick in. This is just the start of... In the demon god style, he unleashes a technique that turns his entire being into a living blade. He stays crouched low, and the speed hits so hard he turns into a blur. Then he rockets his sword up with everything he's got, shouting his special Ice Wolf strike like it's about to tear the sky open. Then it slams straight into the wolf's face, and the impact rips shards of energy flying everywhere as the hit lands perfectly. Soul whips that massive strike down and stays crouched as the power rips through the air. Then the giant wolf gets utterly destroyed by the full force of the attack, and Soul shoots into sudden realization when he realizes that the demon god style he used is the real deal, not a myth at all. He bursts into laughter under his breath, stunned that the legends were actually true. So he slips his sword back into its sheath and turns to leave, realizing that every ounce of that brutal training wasn't a waste at all. And then he strides straight up to Tilty, locks eyes with her, and declares, "I'm the Sword Ranger," and that she isn't just important, she's his destiny. So he finally remembers why he got reincarnated in the first place. Then he flashes her a huge grin, swears everything will be all right from now on, and keeps going, she bursts into happy tears, and she tells him, "I'm just so glad I get to stand by your side together. We'll change the world." And then she leaps up and wraps him in a huge hug, and as she grins, Soul stares her down and warns her about the grim, dark fate the villain has lined up for her. Then he says we'll just mow down anyone or anything that dares to stand in their way. Meanwhile, miles away on a jagged, dark cliff, a colossal castle sits under a violent lightning storm struck again and again from inside. A random dude on a throne leans back and demands, "Is Fenrir back yet?" And his followers scramble to break the worst news. No one's heard a word from the wolf or the slave trader. Back at the dark castle, the masked leader is seething and snaps at his followers to track that guy down right now because he's completely consumed with finding Tilty. He glares at this massive skull, scanning it like it holds answers, wondering where she vanished. Perched on a throne of bones, he roars Tilty's name, his beloved sister, and vows to himself that he'll drag her back home no matter what. While the night hangs heavy, a carriage rolls up to the ranger mansion, and inside sits a man who's finally off the clock after one brutal day of work, so he's just getting ready to. Garland swings open the front door and bursts in yelling that he's finally home right as the family's wet nurse, Baba, rushes to greet him, but Soul barrels forward to greet his dad, and right beside him, the family steps in to introduce Tilty, telling Garland exactly who she is. Then they burst in with the big news: Tilty's officially being welcomed as a new member of the Ranger family, and the countdown to everything that comes next. It completely blindsides Garland. He stares at Soul with pure shock, then demands to know what the heck is happening. At last, the mansion is finally quiet for Muro, wet nurse Baba, and Tilty because she's safe now out of the shadows of her dark past. Now, every ranger is finally together, with Garland running the house. While Soul clings to his own secret, he's a reincarnator, and nobody knows. The whole family crowds around the dining table while Garland tries to make sense of the story, and Soul shows how he rescued Tilty from a monster and got her back safe. Then he locks eyes with his dad like, "You gotta hear this," but Garland just crosses his arms and absorbs everything, while Muro glances his way and asks if he really doesn't think that poor girl's situation is nothing but tragedy. And just like that, the room goes dead silent, because they realize Tilty has literally no family left to run back to. Saul doesn't waste a second. She practically begs her dad to let her stay, And Garland just sits there for a moment, eyes locked as he weighs everything in his head while then boom, his whole vibe flips and he slams a huge thumbs up in the air, telling them there's absolutely no problem at all. And then he winks and says with a smug smile that in a noble family, doing good deeds is simply what you're supposed to do. He shoots up, declares with full confidence that her new name is Tilty Ranger, and the whole crowd erupts cheers blasting, joy soaring for her. So he grinned at his own reflection, buzzing with the thought that they'd finally kicked the future into a whole new gear. But he's fully aware of what's on the line because Tilty is the villain from Noblesse Fantasia, the one who's destined to get totally destroyed. Everything in this world feels like it was pulled right out of a game he played in his past life, and he's dead sure this is his rebirth. Like the universe shoved him into this world only to rescue Tilty. He knows he can't let her out of his sight, so when Garland orders him to teach her about their home, Saul immediately agrees because the feeling in his chest is like his scheme to bring her into the family worked out perfectly, just as he'd prayed it would. Because she's 1 year younger than him. Sold flashes a huge grin and declares, "I'm your big brother now." And Tilty's cheeks flare bright red as she scrambles for the words to say back. But the pressure crushes her and she bolts out of the room without a second thought. Leaving her soul standing frozen in total shock, he blurts out her name. Later, Garland panics because she looks terrified, and while Sold asks his mom if she's being gentle, Morel swears she is, yet there's still something that doesn't add up. Tilty's still locked behind closed doors, refusing to talk to a single one of them. Muro says Tilty's probably just sorting through her feelings, so they shouldn't shove it, and so just hang in there. Garland's convinced she'll crack and open up to them, even if she's really struggling right now. The whole family just stands there in silence, staring like this is all deadly serious. And Soul agrees with his mom because the thought alone hurts. Tilty just got hit with the news that she's got a whole new family, and that's got to be brutal. As the night drags on, Soul brings up that slave market cleanup plan his dad mentioned earlier. Garland reveals the truth. Those so-called nobles didn't just support the mission. They secretly teamed up and chose it on purpose. They did manage to rip the slaves free and get them somewhere safe, but the organization still wasn't fully wiped out. Sold slams to a halt and blurts out, "Wait, Tilty, was she one of the people swept up in this mess?" It hits him like a punch. She didn't change at all. She was just a prisoner all along, and suddenly, everything starts to click. That wolf from earlier wasn't some random sign those traitors sent him to yank her back to that slave organization. Sold suddenly realizes, holy hell, those people are actually using the legendary beast Fenrir for this. And it leaves him reeling. Why would anyone risk all that chaos just to zero in on Tilty? He's piecing it together. This organization is hiding behind those slave traders while Tilty looks tiny, trapped, and terrified. And suddenly he starts eyeing these guys like, no way they're the ones pulling Tilty's doom flag. In the present, Garland plants himself in the field and tells Sold, "All right, show me what you're made of." So yeah, right there with Megan style, he drops the line, "I'm the master." And he's already set, ready to prove that what he's sold is the real deal. Beneath a crescent moon's glow, Saul planted his feet in a fighting stance while his dad kept a sharp, watchful eye on him. He raises his sword high and locks in every ounce of his power. Replaying the moment he stood eye to eye with Fenrir, he finally felt the ley lines hit his bones like lightning for the very first time. Rage and electricity are crashing through his veins and his blade is humming like it's ready to explode right now. Sold locks eyes with his dad and screams that the legends weren't stories at all, they were real. Talking about the secret technique the Ranger family's heir alone is meant to know. He blurts out the demon god style's name, and Garland freezes so hard he can't even pull a single word out of his mouth. Sold tries to flex the ice wolf flash, but his wooden sword explodes in his grip and snaps clean in half. Sho starts panicking because the sword snapped, but his dad just stands there staring at him like he's completely lost his mind. Garland tells him, "Just buy another one." But Sold won't back down. He keeps swearing he's telling the truth about the power. Truth is, since that day, he hasn't landed that style even once, and yeah, I'm serious. He clenches the busted handle and it hits him. This secret move has to be powered by some weird special trigger to pull off. He's going to hunt down that trigger fast, master the style in a snap, and keep Tilty locked out of any more attacks. Especially now that Tilty's been living the quiet life ever since the Rangers officially claimed her. The entire family crowds around the table for a massive pizza feast, everyone laughing and tearing in, having the time of their lives. And just when things couldn't get better, Tilty gets a brand new dress made by Muro himself while the family wet nurse cheers her on like it's a victory parade. Garland and Sold strut back from their trip with a monstrous fish they hauled out of a crab. Then they all start crowding him with compliments and pure hype at once, and Tilty just freezes there, utterly swamped by. Suddenly everyone's attention snaps to her. Then she bolts out of the room, and the rest of the family just stands there like they've been frozen mid. Totally lost, Garland huffs that she still won't let him in. But Morel tells him to chill. This stuff takes time, and they can't just rush. You can't just rush it. Sold sells those watches, convinced living together like this will keep everyone safe, even if he knows he can't. So he can't help but wonder, what if dodging Tilty's dark future is this easy? That night, a brutal thunderstorm crashes over the house, lightning rips through the skies. He lies awake. Sold lies staring at the ceiling, and that gnawing feeling won't quit. There's one tiny detail in Tilty's story he's about to forget, and it could cost everything. The house erupts, glass explodes into a million shards, and Sold's eyes snap wide open as he rockets out of bed, snatches his sword, and sprints out staring at the door like, what the heck was that noise? He instantly clocks the sound is coming straight from Tilty's room so he doesn't waste a single second, and slams the door wide, bracing for whatever's waiting, only to find the room pitch black but what he sees hits harder than he ever imagined. He blurts out Tilty's name at full volume as he spots the window bursts open, bam, and three creepy bat monsters spiral around her bed while Tilly curls up into a tight little ball trapped inside. A swirling storm of dark energy coils in the air. Sold locks onto it, trying to name what he's seeing. Then it hits him. It's pure darkness. The one-eyed monsters hiss at the top of their lungs and spit out creepy, glitchy noises as they hover inches above her. Sold is totally blindsided, stuck wondering why on earth a magical beast would crash this place of all places, but he refuses to let that shock shake him. He screams Tilty's name again, yanks his sword free, and charges in like he's ready to fight them all. Sold lunges ahead, desperate to swing with the only weapon he's got, but then it hits him fast. The sword's still cracked, and that's the last thing he needs in a fight like this. The monsters aren't easing up for a second. One of them suddenly tears loose a sharp screech as they keep circling the room. Sold snaps his broken hilt out like a weapon and tries to swat them away, muttering curses under his breath as he glances over at Tilty. He tells Tilty to hang in there for a little while as he rushes off to track down his dad for help, but then she explodes with a shout, "Just leave me alone," and it hits him like a punch to the chest. Tilty bursts into tears, yelling she's sorry, claiming this crap always happens to her, and she keeps going like, I swear I don't even get it. Why does this endless wave of bad luck keep finding me? Sold shoots her a look, feels every ounce of her pain, and whispers her name like it seals his choice. He yells back, furious and unshakable, saying he's not abandoning her because they're family now. Sold just freezes, stunned to the core, because his promise to stay together hits him like a punch. Staying together was a massive mistake as Tilty clamps onto him in a desperate hug and sobs. She blurts that he's the one who saved her, and he explains how his entire family welcomed her with open arms so warm it almost felt unreal. But even with all that kindness, she was happy for one tiny breath. Then she admitted it plain that joy was exactly what made her hesitate. The shadows creep in as her screams break. She's shouting that it's pointless, that she never should have come here. She screams that staying will only drown them all, and Soul freezes until it finally hits him. Tilty sobs that she'll drag them all straight into misery. Then Wright snaps back and remembers everything from the game. This is the secret backstory of the villain from Noblesse Fantasia. The kind of twist fans only get to see after the credits roll, pinning down one specific episode from her life like a flashback from the story he'd already played through. It's the tale of that noble family who took Tilty in, only for every single one of them to end up dead because of her. A brutal memory slams into Sold's head. His entire family gets slaughtered in the game's original timeline, straight to the bone. And as he sees Tilty crumble right in front of him, it hits him hard, the tragedy he remembers. It turns out this whole thing was really about the Ranger family all along. He stands there, eyes locked on her, as the dark energy swarms in. Tilty sobs and screams through her tears, begging him to throw her out and walk away, because if they don't act right now, it'll be too late. Saul just locks eyes with her, totally zoned in like his mind is already made up. And his decision is blazing in those sparks of focus. He knows that if he just turns around and steps out of this, cutting off Tilty for good right now, everything changes. Then his family could finally live escaping the knife and the murders. If we can stop that nightmare ending, we save lives and wipe away one more tragedy from this world. But Soul doesn't even flinch. She yanks her into a crushing hug, smashing right through the dark shadows. Tilty snaps her head up at him, completely stunned, and can barely choke out a single question. Why are you still holding on? Shadow monsters burst into the room and swarm the place, creaking loud and creepy as they come. But Soul doesn't blink. His eyes stay glued to Tilty as they surge in and close the distance. Tilty fought in his arms, squirming and shouting, begging him to stop and to let her go, but Soul grabs tighter and tells her, "No, I'm not going anywhere," because he's never letting go. He asks if it even matters that she's making him miserable, then hits her with the truth she's not alone. He reminded her, "We've both got parents now," and made it clear he was right there beside her. Soul flashes a smile and calls her his precious sister, swearing right there that he'll guard her with his life. The words finally land and Tilty completely snaps, sobbing without control as she clings to his chest. She barely manages to squeeze out a thank you between the sobs, tears wrecking her voice. She finally calls him her big brother, and the dark energy starts vanishing from the room like it's being chased away. Sold leans over Tilty and shouts her name, and the moment he does, that creepy dark energy finally vanishes from the room. Their eyes flare wide in pure disbelief like they just blinked, and the whole world snapped into something totally different, way too fast. Tilty finally gives in, stops wrestling herself, and just lets the tears spill so peaceful it almost shocks you compared to the storm she had a second ago. Sold watches her break into a soft smile because he actually made it to her in time, and he slammed the darkness back. Even if he can't fully wrap his head around what that dark power was, One thing hits him hard if it's only going to drag trouble in. He's not letting it near him. Right then, his parents exploded into the room. His dad snapped that he wanted to know what was wrong with Tilty, and his mom shot Sold a furious look like, "What the heck just happened?" But Saul locks eyes with both of them and says, straight to the point, that he needs a new sword. He fixes you with a serious stare and tells you straight up he has to get way stronger than he is right now. He swears up and down that he'll protect Tilty no matter what, and that he'll be the one who chops down any darkness that dares to mess with her life. His mom just stands there, stunned, while his dad lets out a smug little smirk, clearly impressed by the kid's sheer grit. Sold's dad finally gives in, he'll forge. Sold an insane custom sword, and Sold's practically vibrating with hype as he blurts out his thanks. They lean over the edge of Swordguest Town, and his dad vows, "I'm taking you to the best smith around, get ready." But at the shop, a pair of suited guys bolt outside screaming that they're never, ever coming back. Smith barely even reacts. He just stands there with his hammer, basically saying good riddance because all they care about is fashion. She yanks her goggles up, spits out how much she loathes nobles then. Sold just smirks, staring like he already knows he'll win her over. Tilty and his dad waste no time straight into town, racing for Gust, dead set on getting that brand new blade sold. The city sprawls so huge you can barely see its end, stretching out as far as the road lets your eyes go. The streets are jammed, wall-to-wall carriages rattling through the chaos while people rush in every direction. Sold points out how packed and buzzing the place is, and his dad tells him this is a massive trade hub, ships and roads, both humming with business, but then he leans in and warns him, "Sure, two noble families rule the town, but those crowds packed with people also drag in plenty of sketchy characters." Sold's dad drops his gaze and snaps at Tilty to stay close so she doesn't get lost in the crowd, and Tilty nods hard, nervous, but determined, swearing she won't. Sold reaches for her hand and pulls her close, insisting they stick together so they don't get swallowed up by the crowd. Tilty looks up at him with a huge grin, cheeks burning as she blurts out her thanks to her big brother for watching out for her. Sola just smirks at her, thinking, wow, she's finally started to warm up to me lately. As they weave through the roaring market, he can't forget how she insisted on coming along because that ended up being a massive help for what came next. He just wants to stay glued to her side, watching her back no matter where they go. But as they walk, both of them suddenly freeze in their tracks, staring in pure shock at what's sitting right there on the street. That street vendor just flicks fire magic from his finger and grills meat like it's no big deal at all. Kids are still out here playing tag only instead of harmless moves. They blast each other with fire and water like it's a deadly game. High above them, a girl zooms across the clouds, broom blazing, delivering bags like it's her mission from the sky. The whole town is basically overflowing with magic vendors or grilling snacks with their own fingers. Kids are blasting it around just for fun, and it's only getting crazier as it... In Noblesse Fantasia, magic isn't some rare miracle, it's just everyday life. The kind of thing most people take for granted. But Soul just stands there, fists clenched like he can't hold it in. And his dad plus Tilty both clock it. He feels left out, so his dad tells him to chill because not everyone's wired for magic, and Soul just nods along, smiling his thanks. He gripped the hilt tight, then fired back, "I don't need magic, my sword is enough." And hey, that demon god sword style he's learning, it doesn't just come with power, it brings a wild, one-of-a-kind move that's straight up insane. Even if he has to swallow his pride and admit it, he's still got a long road ahead before he can truly master it. But his dad loves that confidence, grabs the moment, and tells both of them, "Keep moving so we can finally go pick up your new gear." They finally push into this massive old-school workshop, and hanging right above the front door is a giant sword sign. His dad shouts, "Hello," and Sells just stares around, freaked out. How's this place supposed to be open if nobody's answering? A voice blasts from inside the shop, snapping that they're way too loud and demanding, "Who's there?" Then Sold's dad steps up and formally introduces himself as Baron Gallant Ranger. The guy inside snaps back that nobles can just get lost, and it totally blindsides Soto and his dad. The dad blurts out fast that the master blacksmith really did forge that sword for him ages ago, right from the start, hoping that the door finally swings open, and there she is, an absolute beast of a woman, gripping a massive hammer like it's nothing. She bluntly drops the bomb that the old man is gone, then snaps that she's in charge now, so they'd better clear out. Dad starts grilling her, "Are you the master's kid?" But she just snaps back, "I'm Frey," turns on her heel and tells them to see you. Then the moment keeps unfolding, but Sold snaps in and tells her the truth. He wasn't just passing through. He'd been hunting for his own sword. Frey whips around with a nasty glare, snarls that he's a cheeky little noble brat, and tells him to quit whining and go beg his dad to buy him a toy sword. Sold just freezes there, insult still stinging him, and he doesn't even get the chance to blurt a word before it hits. The door slams shut behind them, and the whole group just stands there in the dusty aftermath, stunned. Sold realizes that forcing an event to score a high-tier weapon is going to take way more than he thought. Meanwhile, his dad is panicking and rushing to apologize because he had no idea the blacksmith's daughter had taken over the shop. So he decides, fine, let's just hunt for another spot, even though he has no clue if any other smiths in town can actually pull it off. But Sold isn't ready to quit. He squares up to his dad and insists, "Let me try one more time." even after his dad shuts it down as a terrible idea. The kid flashes a smile and shrugs it off like it's nothing, because all he wants is to talk to her the right way. His dad gives the nod to go scouting for other shops, then turns to Tilty and asks what she's up to, so she grins and decides to stick right there with her big brother. They huddle side by side in front of the shut door, frozen like the next second could shatter everything. More comes into view, and Tilty's freaking out. She looks terrified and demands to know why that woman acted so scary back there. Soul doesn't look bothered at all. She just asks if she finally managed to see what was hidden in the back of the shop. Tucked away inside was a whole haul of brutal, heavy-duty swords, proof that she wasn't a fake at all. She was the real deal. The swords hanging on the wall look wrecked and thick at first glance, like they're half-finished, and nobody bothered to smooth them out, so... But when he looks at those blades, Sold can feel it's something special, like they've got a gravity all their own, and he can't stop staring. He strides right back into the forge where Frey is working and blurts that he needs a real, proper talk, no more running from it. Tilty's wobbling behind him as Frey whirls around, furious and snapping. "Why do you think you can just barge in?" And Saul cuts in, saying he's got a request. He thrusts his own sword toward her, pointing out how wrecked the hilt is, and Frey yanks her goggles up so she can stare at it up close. Sold tells her to her face he needs a power sword, one that won't snap the moment he goes all out. Frey just freezes, fully blindsided, and blurts, "Who the hell are you?" He blurts out his name and begs for that weapon because only then can he keep his sister alive, but right before they can wrap it up, voices slam in from the doorway asking, "Is this the place that kicked us out last time?" Mobrub, this massive armored brute, comes stomping in and screams that he's on orders from Lord Walger Debbihip. Then he barks that they'd better forge him a sword right now. Sold blurts out in shock when the vibe snaps, and Frey just exhales, rubbing her head like, "Seriously? It's always one thing after another on this cursed day." Mobrub holds the line at the door, but Frey doesn't flinch. She hits him with the truth that her dad always refused to forge swords just to impress flashy nobles. The big guy snaps into rage, leans in close, and screams that her old man definitely forged a blade for Lord Walger back in the day. Frey goes stone-cold quiet and stares at the ground as the shadows swallow her face. Then she finally mumbles that he's right. Her father really did forge it, but there was. She drops the chilling truth Walger threatened her father, swearing he'd burn the world to protect his daughter, and it all leads to you know the rest. Trailing off right there. Takes her straight back to when she was just a kid. She can still feel her dad drilling the craft into her every single day, while he'd rip into everyone, yelling that a sword isn't some fancy decoration. It's meant to swing in battle, not sit there looking pretty. And he'd jab at those fancy, pointless weapons, then snap at her. "Don't you dare make anything that's just for show." He urged her to forge only the swords she truly believed in. And he basically begged her, "Please, don't you ever repeat the same mistakes that ruined me." Frey stares at the memory of himself at the anvil, hearing his own words, "A sword is power," and realizing he clung to that belief right up to the very end. Frey replays her dad's voice in her head, cursing himself as a foolish old man for tossing everything aside just to shield her, and she finally gets it. That's the whole reason she has to make the real choice right now. Frey screams that she's taken her father's spirit to heart, and she looks totally ready to explode into the next moment. She clenches her hammer, ready to dig in, swearing she'll never forge a thing, because the only blades worth fighting with are the real ones. Tilty and Soul just stared at her, completely stunned, watching her finally snap her spark back to life, and then Mobrub just smirks at her like she's telling some dusty bedtime tale, because in his mind, swords are basically pointless now. He rants that magic is the only thing that matters, insisting one mage can wipe out 100 sword-wielding fools. So to him, a blade isn't anything special, it's just a fake magic staff or flashy jewelry. A noble wears to show off. Mabra snaps, snatches Frey by the collar, yanks her off the ground, and screams that nobody wants a real weapon anymore. He leans in close and whispers that Walger expects her dad's old skills to deliver, so she'd better stop talking and get to work. Mabra leans in over Frey, demands to know if she truly wants to be threatened too. And it's only then that everything in Frey clicks into. Her groan and pure frustration burst out as she's trapped, and then Sold suddenly barrels in, yelling at the guy to stop, and he makes it brutally clear if anyone here is truly in need of a real sword, he's the one who has it. Frey just freezes, staring at him in pure shock because this kid is really stepping in for her. But Mobrub isn't buying any of this. He glares down at the punk who's talking back, baffled that some random kid thinks he can get away with it. Without even thinking, the knight swings his blade and blasts the Sold flying across the room. Tilty shrieks for her brother. Mobrub snaps at him to watch his mouth because if he doesn't, he'll straight up kill him. Sold slammed to the ground, gripping his chest, and he couldn't stop berating himself for dropping his guard like a total idiot. His eyes go wide as he snaps his gaze upward, shocked, speechless, because Tilty is right in the middle of the night, screaming at him to stop being so mean to her big brother. Tilty's snapping, she's crying and screaming that she'll never forgive the people who hurt her big brother, and Frey looks utterly terrified as Mobrub yanks her close, growling, "Do you want to die with me?" And Frey can barely get the next words out or three. She's right there, cursing the night like it personally betrayed her, white-knuckling her smithing hammer then. Then Sold scrambles back up, snatches one of the massive blades off the shop floor, and Frey screams at him to drop her sword, but she reaches for him and he just brushes her off, snapping into a flawless combat stance while he hoists that massive weapon like it weighs nothing at all. His eyes burn sharp and icy as he snaps at the knight to yank his hands off his sister right now. Frey just stands there, baffled, staring like, how the hell is a little brat like you even lifting a blade that heavy? Tilty keeps sobbing, begging for her brother while Mabrub only barks orders, the smug little shit, and glares him down through that helmet, pressing the kid like, do you even get what kind of mess you're causing? Not even a beat passes, this knight explodes forward and charges straight at him, screaming that he doesn't care if he dies. Mabrub lets out a laugh and snaps, I can't complain, then blasts a massive fireball still clutching. Tilty completely snaps, he screams as the blast's searing heat closes in on him. Sold stays ice calm while everything explodes around him, like he's finally unlocked the one feeling he's been chasing right there. And right then and there, a weird jolt sprouts in his chest as he swings. It's Fenrir's power, the same demon beast he just fought, and now it hits him like a surge of pure evil. Power surged through his whole body and his face said it loud he's about to end this. He hurls that massive blade forward, smashing a brutal wave of force straight into the path. The attack's pressure screams through the air, blowing everything away, and then Sold shouts his play, the wolf flash slicing straight through the knight's defense. Mobrib totally loses it. He yells and screams, clutching his arm, and he's like, what the hell is up with that sword? Mobrub is reeling from that brutal hit, while Frey fights to keep Tilty safe. Sold locks in and won't budge because deep down he's thinking that a sword is basically pure power, and he screams that this is the exact power he needs to protect everyone he cares about. Frey's jaw drops at what that kid just pulled off, while Tilty lights up like she can't wait to tell you because she knows it's done for the bad guys. Mobrub is groaning in agony, and his glasses-wearing buddy starts panicking, yelling his name as the two of them bolt out of there, and Mabrub snarls curses as he sprints. His assistant gasps, pleading for him to slow down before they vanish, leaving Sold and Tilty alone. Tilty rockets into a tight hug and blurts out thanks to her big brother for everything. He only pauses long enough to check she's really okay, and then she's totally fired up, swearing that move is the exact one he used back then, so Saul just grins, nods along, and finally clicks the whole thing together because he remembers going toe-to-toe with that giant wolf Fenrir. It's exactly like that moment all over again. And it happens again. Mabrub yanks her in his grip and suddenly it all clicks in his head. And it clicks saving Tilty is the real key to unlocking the Magan style, so he just exhales in pure relief that she's safe. That bargain blade finally gives up snapping clean off the handle with a sharp crack and Tilty flips out, screaming that the sword just shattered into a pile of pieces. Sold stares at the useless hilt and snaps, this one failed too, realizing Megan's style crushes a normal sword because it's just not made to handle it. Both kids snap upright when they spot Frey standing right there, arms crossed, staring them down like she'd been watching the whole time, and she locks eyes with them and stares them down like she's ready to burn through their souls. Sold and Tilted shot forward, started bowing nonstop, and kept apologizing like crazy, saying they were so sorry they'd wrecked one of her swords, but Frey shatters the panic. She tells them, don't worry, and then says she'll forge a brand new one for him, leaving everyone completely blindsided. She flashes him a small, teasing smile, and her mind starts replaying what happened back then. Back when her dad was working at the anvil, he leaned in and told her, a sword isn't just steel, it's power. He told her the power every person needs to keep fighting and never betray what they believe in. Frey stares at the sails and realizes, yeah, his conviction is the real deal. He wants power to protect what matters. So she decides to forge a blade worthy of that dream, and tells him point blank that she's forging a mighty sword that'll never snap, not matter how brutally he swings it. She shoots them a confident wink and flashes a thumbs up, swearing she'll be the one who delivers the results herself. Sold can't stop grinning. He finally has a weapon that can stand up to his demon god style, and he joyfully thanks her like it's a victory lap. Both kids start blurting their thanks, and Frey's tough act kicks in. She tells them to quit the formal stuff and just call her Frey. The moment he sold it and felt the rush, he knew that new weapon was his key. Exactly what he needed to crank his strength up to a whole new level. Next stop, this massive mansion across town, and trust me, things for my side are going way worse than before. For Mabrub standing there with his arm in a sling while Lord Waldger roars that any soldier who loses to a kid gets fired on the spot. The knight spirals into full panic, begging his master to listen, swearing the kid he just fought wasn't some cheap brat but something far more dangerous. He tells him the kid's swordplay looks like pure magic, and then boom, the silver-haired girl's too shows up, leaving Waldger absolutely stunned. Back at the mansion, Lord Waldger hammers the same update another silver-haired girl has been spotted, and his mohawk-wearing goons erupt in laughter because things are finally getting wild. A thunderous shout of sheer shock erupts from the blacksmith shop and blasts straight into the street because of the moment that he can't believe what he's hearing. He's screaming that Frey can't make the sword, while Tilty just stares, totally lost, and demands to know why. Frey stays icy calm, repeats herself to the kids, and insists straight up that she can't forge that weapon for them right this second. She quizzes Sold, "Is it true you can't use any magic?" And he just nods, yeah. And that's exactly why he grinds his sword skills like his life depends on it. Frey jabs a finger straight into his face and blasts the truth. His exact sword style is the biggest problem that they've been fighting. She tells him that the moment she saw him fire off that Ice Wolf flash move, something inside her churned like she could feel the power behind his technique. It felt like a tidal wave of demonic power. Then she starts talking, that he's basically tapping into the imagined style, an insane fighting technique that pulls straight from the real power of demons. She talks about an ancient scroll that says this dark power has to nest inside your body, then your whole soul transforms into a living blade. Frey breaks it down. Some fighters don't just swing their swords, they wield them like magic staves, unleashing spells with every strike and saying, "Yeah, this is totally magic." Even though Sold unleashes ice, she snaps that at first he wasn't freezing anything. He was just coating the blade. Then everything flipped when he crushed the sword into pure magic, yanking off his move like it was destiny. Basically, he remade the entire weapon into a razor-thin blade of ice. She lifts a shattered hilt and tells the kids, straight up, her usual swords can't handle this kind of fight. She finally admitted she never built them to survive that kind of pressure or that wild, brutal fighting style. Sold starts to panic, blabbering, "What do we do now?" But Frey stays ice calm and snaps back, "It's simple." She tells them, "You just need materials tough enough to survive his power." And both kids are left staring like, wait, what does that even mean? Frey brings up the wild tale her dad used to tell her about a special stone that's not from here, but from another world. Welcome to the Magic Dimension, an insane dungeon world bursting with magical beasts and flowing mana everywhere you look. Frey tells him that the special ore from that dimension is so brutal it can shrug off any demonic power thrown at it. She bolts away from Tilty with wide eyes, clutching the stone's name on her tongue as she repeats it under her breath like she can't believe it. Sold is way too pumped and blurts out, "So what kind of rock is it?" But Frey shoots him a sharp look and tells him to shut up. She finally blurts it out, "The thing they've been hunting, it's called a monostone." As night drops over the loud city streets, the whole crew decides to sprint back to the place they're staying. They hustle back to the inn, snatch some food, and dive into the talk to set everything straight. Sold's dad leans in and nods, and it hits him. This Magan style won't work unless they get their hands on a legendary sword. He kept pressing them like, would a weapon like that finally make his wild special fighting style real? Sold finally admits it's possible, then immediately reminds them they still need a magic stone. And his dad breaks into laughter at the timing of it all. Just as the real price of a magic stone clicks in, he totally loses it and blasts his drink all over the place. Sold's dad is still rattling with shock, wheezing as he demands, "Are you really serious about this?" Sold shoots him a look, checking if his old man's actually holding it together or if he's about to blow a fuse. And the dad just locks eyes with them, wearing pure stress, bluntly saying what they're asking for is way too much for him to handle. He kicks off the explanation, saying magic stones are so insanely rare you can't even buy them on the regular market. Not even if you tried. So yeah, one tiny sliver of one of those things is worth more than the fanciest jewels on earth. Sold's face drops the moment he remembers Frey saying the exact same thing, like getting found by the world is flat out impossible. His dad tells it straight. This isn't happening right now, but then he vows to dig up another way to get them exactly what they need. Night sweeps over the city, and suddenly the monostones take center stage because even way back when this was just a game, everyone knew these things were insanely impossible to find. As Sold and Tilty crawl into bed for the night, Sold stares at the ceiling like, wow, in the game. All I had to do was grind for cash. He just stares at the ceiling, feeling every ounce of this crushing weight because trying to pull all this off in real life has turned into one massive headache. Tilty rolls over and tells him she's praying he can snag those stones then. Sold shoots her a grin and says he's hoping for the exact same thing. Right as they finally sit down, Tilty leans in and whispers, "Sold?" He glances over, totally thrown off, like, wait, what's going on when she flashes him a massive smile, thanking him for saving her and telling him he looked totally cool back then. She giggles to herself, tells him goodnight again like always, still calling him Big Brother, and that's when everything tips over. Steve lay there, blushing hard, and he felt absolutely on top of the world about how everything had played out. Staring up at the moon, he thinks, if she's that adorable villainess, then I'm game whatever she wants. Deciding on the spot that he'll plow through any suffering just to make her happy, so he doubles down. He's determined to get those magic stones delivered by the very next day, no excuses. Next morning, Frey sold him the sword she'd been fixing up, then told them, "I'll be here when you come back." Once the goodbyes are out of the way, the crew piles into their carriage and starts the brutal, winding ride back towards Soldier Village. But Sold's dad looked wrecked, apologizing that they didn't actually manage to get the new sword today. Solde's dad is still crushed by the sword, but Solde gives him a shake like, don't sweat it, because now they finally have a solid plan for what happens next, and that alone makes his heart lift so he can keep going. Her dad leans in and asks Tilty if she finally got to breathe after all that chaos. Tilty flashes him a huge smile and blurts out that she definitely did. Meanwhile, he kept telling himself everything was going perfectly, buying into every right step, even with the chaos, convinced he'd just set off all the perfect sparks to land that sword. Everything's calm until a brutal explosion tears straight through the side of the carriage. Sold's dad yells, then the driver rockets through the air and Tilty's tilt screams, shaking with terror. Sold lunges for her, but the moment she grabs on, everything erupts into flames and choking smoke then. But the carriage lies smashed and smoking by the roadside then. Out of the chaos, a pair of boots steps into view, revealing Dagora, who goes wild, cheering like he just nailed his target, and he shouts for his crew to rush in, whipping the rest of the bandits into a frenzy as they roar his name. Bandits lunge toward the smoking wreck of the carriage, swords bared and ready to strike. And when the chaos swallows the ground, Dagora reaches in and yanks Tilty out by her collar. Then he bursts into laughter, shouting to his crew that they've finally grabbed the treasure they hunted. Staring at the unconscious girl, he declares he's hauling ass straight back to Lord Walger's place to deliver her. Dogera tells his crew he's heading out, dumping the rest of the cleanup on them, while the bandits roar back, "We've got it covered." Sold and his dad are slumped on the ground, completely knocked out after that blast. As he strides through the quiet forest, Tilty slung over his shoulder. Dagora can't shake it. He still can't believe a kid like that is real. And then it hit this freaky amount of strength. Wasn't random at all, it was the power of darkness, awakening in full force. Later on, a voice booms through a crystal ball and tells Walger and Dagora that stealing that exact power is the Titan's whole mission. Walger hunched low, voice shaking, and begged his master to confirm it were they really talking about the power of darkness in them. And the voice from the ball tells the truth. This power is huge and it's downright terrifying. He claims there's one person out there who can tap into a power so massive it could swallow the whole world. And Tilty's brother glares coldly as he lays it out. This is what it really means to be the priestess of darkness. The master snaps Walger's way. Twice you failed to snatch the girl, and you can hear the noble groan with pure shame. Walger looks like he's seconds away from snapping because he can't stop thinking about the girl escaping after she killed her mother the first time. Then Dagora snaps back to the moment she escaped again, right after they unleashed Fenrir on her. A booming voice from the ball jolts Walger. This is his third try at it, while he and the other bow down together. He stares straight into their eyes through the glass, then snaps out a brutal command to bring the targets back no matter what it costs. Walger panics out of nowhere, yelling that he'll handle it all and demanding everyone else just backs off and trusts him. The master leans in and says, "If you pull this off for real, I'll hand you a taste of that dark power so you can wield it too." Walger erupts into laughter, says it's a massive honor, and swears they'll finally catch them. This time, no exceptions. Meanwhile, Tilty jolts awake and blurts, "Priestess of Darkness," over and over, sounding totally shattered, and she's so lost she blurts out where she is, Dagora, hugging her under his arm, snaps at her to shut up or she'll die. She doesn't listen for even a second, and bursts into tears, shouting to find out what happened to her father and her brother. Dagor just stands there, smirking like he owns the place, and lets out a low, nasty little sound. He coldly told Tilty it was him who killed her family. Tilty's face says everything. She's frozen, totally stunned by the news, and she starts screaming at the top of her lungs, but Dagora just hauls her through the woods like she's luggage, snapping that she's being too loud and needs to shut up. She can't hold it in pain tears through her, and she just breaks, sobbing hard and screaming at the top of her lungs. So Dagora snaps even harder. He shoves the words in her face and snarls that he already told her to shut up. Then he slams to a halt halfway through his sentence, staring at what he's seeing like his brain just short-circuited. Dark energy starts boiling up from the ground like a living flood, and Dagora can't hold it together. He's yelling for answers like, "What the hell is happening?" As Tilty glares up through tears, she vows she'll make sure everyone's life turns into misery. Dagora stared in total disbelief because the power blasting off her was way, way stronger than he ever thought. Isekai'D is totally trapped in this insane dark energy. Then her body starts to change, fast and out of control. Dagora feels the darkness pour into him, melting through his skin until his eyes go pitch black. Power slammed through his arms, and his veins bulged like they were about to burst. He says it feels unreal, then lets out a massive roar as his muscles explode bigger and bigger. So he screams that darkness is the absolute best, and Tilty gets pulled under, swallowed by a towering whirlpool of black energy. She's watching from the side, and it finally hits her. Darkness is what fuels the power, that's why they're hunting her. But Dagora erupts into a maniacal laugh and goes, "What the hell is this kid even doing here?" He demands answers. Where are all his men down the hill? But Soul keeps her eyes locked on the task at hand. Even with his chest heaving and his breath ragged, he can't stop thinking he was way too careless. He had no idea they'd come at him this hard, especially after his dad was already sprawled out from getting KO'd by that wagon. Soul's dad sprawls on his back beside the wagon, staring at the sky as guilt crushes him. He knows he totally dropped the ball and never should have been unprepared for this. But even with those brutal injuries, he lifts his head, grits his teeth, and decides he's done playing nice no more mercy from here for the... And to these guys, meanwhile, he slips the locks in tight, like it doesn't matter when it happens or who's standing in his way, because if someone even dares to go after Tilty, he's going to make them pay, because right now he's locked in on that threat with total focus. With rage burning in his eyes, he vows to himself that he's going to cut every single one of them down. Dagora just cackles at the kid, towering in front of that massive swirl of dark energy, and tells him, "Moblib was right, you really are special." Then he flexes his powered-up muscles, tells Sold not to underestimate him, and straight up calls him a little shit. He steps straight into Sold's face, flashes a nasty grin, and screams that the Priestess of Darkness is Titan's property now. Then he keeps pushing forward, swearing they'll treat her like a queen, while it's obvious to everyone that something twisted is already brewing in his head. Tilty's trapped as the shadows swallow her whole, and while she screams her lungs out, Dagora howls with glee, saying she's basically a human drug that supercharges their power. Saul says nothing. He just tightens his grip on his sword and strides forward with a look that screams, "I'm done messing around." Dagora snaps, screams at the kid to burn into ashes, and swings a huge punch packed with dark energy, but selling is way too fast. He darts through like a blur, slashing his blade past everyone like it's nothing, and the big guy can barely react. Sharp slashes tear through the air and slice him down, leaving. He left Dagora utterly frozen mid-swing, trapped as the air around him turned ice cold. Soul just keeps backing away, then sheaths his sword, while Dagora freezes there, completely lost, blurting out, "What the heck just happened?" Then panic hits him hard. He blurts out a pathetic yelp as the ice slithers up his body. He's sobbing and begging, yelling for Soul to stop, but the frost barrels forward so fast he can't even react, and in seconds the ice is swallowing him up until all he can manage is a terrified whisper for help as his eye goes wide. Sold clicks his blade away and strides off behind him, and the ice wolf flash turns Dagora into a full-on human popsicle. Sold locks eyes with Tilty, a cold stare that screams one thing: anyone who comes for her is getting crushed. Dagora just stands there, frozen stiff ice sealed over his face like a living tomb. He turned his back on the chaos, sprinting toward a massive sphere of swirling dark energy, and then the moment cut off mid-breath as it threatened to swallow everything. He reaches out with both hands, flashes a gentle smile, and tells whoever's inside, "It's okay, now you're safe." He shouts for Tilty to come to him, and she peeks out from the shadows with teary eyes, trying to find the courage to step forward, and she snaps, sobs spilling out as she cries for her big brother. Finally smashing through the darkness, she rockets forward and tackles Sold into a huge hug, and he catches her instantly, right on the spot. Holding her tight, Sold leans in and vows that no matter how terrified or hopeless she feels, he's dead set on saving her, swearing straight from the heart that he'll never let her down. Tilty keeps sobbing into his chest as he begs her to stay strong because he won't let the darkness win. Sold pulls Tilty into a tight embrace and blurts out, "I'm sorry for everything," and she just clings right back, and then she blurts out a thank you to her big brother. Because right after that, her body goes completely limp in his arms. Sold snaps out and realizes she's passed out again, caught in the same crushing stress as the last time, looking exactly the same as before. And he just stands there, staring into the void, realizing the Titans are still out hunting that dark power. Then straight from the woods, voices burst out, bragging that he wiped Dagora out in a single hit. Suddenly, the crowd erupts, armored knights crash in as a group, and announce they've arrived from House Hartman. The lead knight storms in saying he's here to take the stuff back, but the guy won't hear any of it. He snaps, "What the hell is..." And as we speak, it's all really happening. Then the scene snaps to this massive mansion glowing under the moonlight, and turns out House Hartman is one of the two giant noble families in control of Gus. The knights dragged the kid into the spotlight and announced him as Lord Sold, the Ranger family's son, while the whole crowd stared. They roll up to the Hartman estate, and a man stationed at the desk greets the Sold man with a firm handshake, telling him it's finally great to meet him. And right there, he introduces himself, Reich Hartman, the top of the whole family tree towering in place as he stares right at the beds where Sold's dad and sister lie resting. He tells them a doctor already came by to treat them. He tells Sold, "You can finally breathe, everything's safe now," but the kid glances at Tilty. Then it hits him relaxing is the one thing he can't do right now, and the idea feels totally out of reach. The truth is, he's on edge for one brutal reason. When he locks eyes with Reich, it hits him. This isn't just some random guy, he's straight out of the Noblesse Fantasia game, So yeah, he's running into one of the original story's main characters, and that's a nightmare. Because in the game's world, Reich is the one Destin must face head-on and bring down the villainous Tilty for good. Sold slumps on the couch, absolutely fried because he knows Reich and his family weren't meant to be enemies until way later, and this timing feels totally wrong. Even after he thanks Reich for saving them, he can't shake the gut feeling that something darker is unfolding behind the scenes. He suddenly spirals into memories of those three knights in the forest swearing they were only there to grab him. And he can't help wondering, why do they always pop up at the exact perfect moment to save the day like fate planned it that way? He glances over at Reich, still seated while his soldiers stand guard, and you can feel it. This is the story's biggest turning point. Sold remembers from the game that Reich is a genius tactician who's always plotting 3 moves ahead, and he's dead sure this guy would never, ever play the hero just because he's got a good heart. Then it hits him by saving Tilty. He didn't just spare her life, he rewrote everything, forging a whole new timeline where, if Tilty's family survives instead of getting wiped out, then Reich meets her as a kid so they don't clash at the academy years later. Staring at Reich's calm face, Sold couldn't stop himself from wondering what kind of deadly master plan this tactician was cooking up next. Reich leans in and says, "My family's been keeping a hawk eye on Dagora, the same guy we just watched get wiped out." This shocks the kid, but Reich quickly clears it up. Dagora isn't just someone in the shadows, he runs the whole town's criminal underworld. That dude's been knee-deep in brutal crimes for years, smuggling, and even human trafficking. And even after Reich kept dragging him to justice again and again in the past, no matter what he launches, it never sticks. His crushing backing wipes every charge clean out the moment they hit. When Sold asks what backing means, Reich locks eyes with him, dead serious, and confirms that turns out the mastermind behind all of it is Walger Debihip, the head of the noble family that rules this town shoulder to shoulder with the Hartmans. Hearing that name yanks my memory straight to Walger's thugs barreling in, snarling for a custom sword and demanding it so hard that it still feels like it's happening, and how the noble once threw threats at Frey to yank her father's hand back into line way back then. That's when Reich snapped to the truth. This guy wasn't a hero at all. He was a giant villain, squeezing the townspeople like tools to line his own pockets and rake in the cash. Reich leans in and admits the truth. Sure, things look grim, but they've got zero real proof tying the noble to Dagora's gang, which makes one of his knights snap, yelling that the whole town already knows that guy's a total piece of shit. Another knight snaps at him to shut up, and Reich shoots back that it doesn't matter if you know the truth if you can't do anything with it. Sold finally turned away from the shadows and sold those side stairs then. The truth hit him just how deep the corruption in this town runs. He locks eyes with him and demands straight to his face if his real plan is finally to crush Walger for good. Reich doesn't say a word at first, he just stares the kid down hard through his glasses, eyes burning with pure intensity while his knights just stood in the back, totally stunned by the kid's straight-shooting questions. Sold keeps pushing, insisting Reich has been lurking and watching Dagora the whole time, just waiting to snatch the proof needed to bury that noble for good. And when Reich clocks how much the kid has figured out, a small, smug smile slowly creeps onto his face. He tells Sold, "I've got to admit, I'm genuinely shocked because you're dead on about everything." Reich says that, yeah, on paper, the Hartman and Davichip families are meant to run this town side by side in perfect harmony, but he slips and admits it's all one huge performance, and deep down, both families are just biding their time, hunting for the perfect moment to tear each other apart. Reich leans in and tells you how his family's life has been growing right alongside the town of Gus, step by step. And as his knights beam with pride, he leans in and declares that the folks living here are the true treasure of his whole house. So he makes it crystal clear if they want to protect everyone, they can't let a guy like Walger beat them. Sold just sits there with his tea, shell-shocked, because this guy who Reich claims he is, keeps pulling surprise after surprise out of nowhere. The kid remembers, in the original game, Reich always came off like pure sarcasm and blunt cynicism, and he even remembers how Reich used to shout at everyone no mercy, not 1 ounce for any enemy who dared cross the Hartman house. He locks eyes with the guy, wondering if he's not just some random, maybe he's got a wild, burning passion hidden deep down, and if he's been busting his butt the whole time, trying to earn his place and do his duty as a young lord. Reich demanded Sold confirm was the guy he just beat Dagora. Trying to get at Reich's sister, Sold nodded and said, "Yeah, that was the whole point." And he goes on to say Dagora claimed his sister somehow ended up belonging to a group called the Titan. Reich says he figured it all out, and that freaks his knights out so hard. Meanwhile, the left guy's staring like, what does that even mean? And then boom, the Titans get exposed as a huge shadow crew, quietly steering the world's underworld from the dark. Nobody can say when they first showed up or who's really steering the ship. All anyone knows is they're a ruthless crew wrapped in pure mystery. Reich's face went stone cold as he admitted he'd had a nasty gut feeling from the start. Walger was tangled up with those same people. He tells you Walger's got a twisted plan. He's going to use Soul's sister for something, and it's not for nothing. Handing her over would skyrocket Walger's rise, put him higher in the ranks, and lock him even tighter into the organization. If it happens, the town's corruption will spiral harder and turn the whole place into a brutal, bloody disaster so no one stays safe. Reich just stands there, daring it to happen, swearing he'll crush it no matter what. So we've got to move like lightning to stop him. Reich stands by the window with his back to Soul, tells him he's got a real proposal, then when Soul repeats the word back, looking freezes for a second. Then it hits him, this whole offer was the real reason they're here. Reich went straight to them first, then leaned in, locked eyes, and demanded to know what the real deal was. The scene snaps into a full-blown nightmare. Bandits storm the town, torch every street, and inside the house, Tilty's mom grabs her and screams for her to run. Then she stays put, fighting for every second to buy time. She fires back a chilling warning, dangerous darkness is creeping in, and it's zeroing in on her specifically, but she brushes Tilty's face and reassures her, insisting she's okay even though that darkness is exactly what's been tearing her apart. She swears that one day a light will finally come strong enough to tear through that darkness and erase it for good, so she's so shaken she can't stop. She has to push forward no matter how brutal it gets, even while she's sobbing for her mom. Tilty jolts awake in bed, tears blazing in her eyes, and screams for her mother, like that nightmare is still clinging to her. Tilty finally snaps her eyes open, totally disoriented, blurting, "Wait, where am I?" The nurse beside the bed reassures her she's awake now, then tells her they're staying at the Hartman estate. Tilty spots her dad in the next bed and screams for him, but the nurse slams on the brakes and tells her to stay calm. She promises that if Tilty stays quiet and gets some rest, everything will look up soon. Under the moonlight, Tilty stares at the huge house and blurts, "Where did my brother go?" The nurse quickly tells her he's tied up for now, probably hashing things out with Lord Rake, the one calling the shots in this place. Someone slams a confident step forward in the hallway like he just materialized out of nowhere, right when she needed him most. No matter what hit the world, he was already there, standing in front of her. And when Tilty finally understands, she realizes her mom's promise wasn't empty. He's really here, ready to protect her. She bursts into the office, flings the doors wide, and yells for her big brother. Then she spots Sold standing there, and the thought hits her like a spark. He's the light that saved her. But the mood flips the second she hears Soul tell the Lord he wants the Hartman family to take her in and protect her. Tilty just stands there, completely frozen. The thought of being left behind hit her like a truck. She stared at him, tears spilling, and demanded, "What are you even talking about?" But then he glances at her and basically says, "Your timing couldn't be more perfect." Sold snaps his head up in pure shock, and right away he blurts Tilty's name because she's standing in the doorway. Light keeps his voice steady at his desk, tells Tilty that her dad is resting, and admits he's already been drilling the whole situation with Soul. He wastes no time and warns Tilty straight to her face. Walger, the town's marquis, is zeroing in on her. He adjusted his glasses, then admitted it. Yeah, the threat's real, but he still couldn't crack why that guy is going after her. Since Walger's a high-ranking noble, he'd have no problem pinning fake crimes on her and smiling while he did it just to get his way. It's even worse than they feared. If Walger goes after her, he could wipe out the entire Ranger village. And Tilty and Sold walked away, and when the dust settled, they just stood there in total silence because the danger finally crashed into them. Like Spill's the real reason the Hartman family wants her close. This is the only way to shield her from him and keep her alive. He locks eyes with her and makes it crystal clear he's not doing this just to be kind to her, because this deal is really a shield keeping everyone she calls family back home safe from getting pulled into the blast zone. Tilty is absolutely shell-shocked by the news, and the words won't even come out of his mouth. Tears spill down her face as she shoots a panicked look at Sold, crying out for her big brother, because she has no idea what to do. Sold doesn't flinch 1 inch. He locks in his stance and finally realizes what kind of game he's really been thrown into. He calls it out, sure. The offer sounds like it's meant to help them, but like is playing a much bigger game behind the scenes. So he's guaranteed to be the one sitting in the stronger, more dominant position than Walger. By letting Tilty stay under the Hartman family's roof, they're basically playing keep away with the one thing Walger wants most, Tilty himself. And for Walger, there's basically nothing worse than being trapped in a place like this. Because Walger is determined to get Tilty back safe and sound, his hands are basically tied. So he can't afford to pull anything messy or start trouble with the Hartmans, because one wrong move and he loses everything. Sold finally realizes Lake's the real boss here, so he can swing in with full aggression whenever he wants, while Walger has no choice but to sit there and eat every hit. So Old stares and it hits him hard. The guy doesn't see Tilty as anything special, just a bargaining chip. Catch's eye is on the prize. He's reading the kid fast, and he knows he's got to stay razor sharp around him. Tilty just stands there, totally clueless, as the two of them lay out her future, and Sold starts firing off numbers in his head, his only mission screaming, keep her safe no matter what. He can't stop asking himself, should he really walk away, leave her with the affection she wants, and finally go chase his own life? Or he could have tried to guard her with his own power. But he decides the smartest move is to take the deal. He clenches his fist, spiraling over one brutal question: what road truly makes her happy, and whether he's even the guy who can pull it off. Finally, Sold lowered his head and spoke like he got it, begging him to protect his sister with all his heart. Tilty's eyes instantly flood with tears as she calls out to him, screaming, why this is happening, and begging him not to leave her behind. Sold doesn't say a word. He stares at the ground, face locked away, wrestling with the choice as if it's burning in his hands. Like a vow that the Hartman family will throw everything they have at protecting Tilty, Sold bows his head and whispers, thank you. But before they lock anything in, he drops one rule, one condition they have to agree to. With a massive grin, Sold begs him to join on the spot, and Tilty just stands there, stunned, right beside him. They just stared him down, frozen in pure shock at the kid's wild request. Even the knights posted in the back can't mask their shock. He sells then the promise he made to himself hits him like a thunderclap because he knows it's on him to protect her for real. And Tilty finally snaps into a massive, joyful grin as she stares at him. Soul just shoots her a confident wink like he's got everything locked down and fully under control. Like, he stands there for a second, watching the two of them collide in conversation until he drops the FG. Lee finally flashes a smirk and repeats it. Sold won't leave. Not when he's staying to protect his sister, and he sounds genuinely impressed as he says it. Like's all in on the plan, but he insists on running the whole thing by someone else before it goes anywhere. Turns out it wasn't just anyone at all, it was his younger sister. Sold gets totally blindsided when his sister walks in, while Tilty just keeps fixating on the word discuss. Like that's the only thing that matters. Like asks, "You good with this?" And Sold blurts, "Yeah." But his face screams confusion because why the heck isn't the head of the house the one making the call? Like, he tells both of them to stay right there at the mansion, kick back and relax until the moment Sold's dad is finally back on his feet. And later that night, boots slam the floor like the room just got invaded by footsteps. Storms into a bedroom and yells for a girl named Siluria, who's just sitting on the bed surrounded by stuffed animals, and with still glued to her book, she shoots her brother a question. "Did you find the girl you're hunting?" Like smirks back and says he did, proving he's got her locked in tight safe exactly the way she promised he would. He tells her, "That weird clairvoyance of yours totally worked." And it hits exactly where she said it would. Siluria sits on her bed in eerie silence, just a girl except everyone's saying she holds the total key to the Hartman family's future. And then she tells him, finding Tilty is great news. But then she pauses and drops the real problem. There's something else he still has to bring up. He spills the truth that noble boy with Tilty isn't trying to steal anything he's offering to work for their family. And it might. So now I'm like, wait, did Siluria see him in her visions too? But she just shrugs and swears she has no clue who that kid even is. With her clairvoyance sharpening, she peers into the future and realizes a boy like Soul never shows up anywhere in it. Like sees this as a huge red flag and decides, right, then he'll just shut the kid down, right? With the moon glaring over the mansion, Siluria grabbed her brother's arm and told him, wait a second. Because she's got this gut feeling that kid's hiding something seriously off. She tells him Sold is the first person she's ever met whose powers don't just bend, they straight up break, and she's absolutely sure there's a massive reason he burst into their house out of nowhere. Sold stands there, grinning to himself, wondering if Siluria is right that he might really be something special, but Siluria keeps staring him down, hunting for the answer, will he spark her family's success or drag them into total ruin? So she decides she's the one who'll judge him while out. Right in the middle of nowhere, a dark rift rips open in the air, and trust me, it's way too soon for anyone to celebrate because that creepy dark hole just sits out in the woods and it's radiating pure nightmare energy. Back at the house, Sold finally drops into his new life training as a guard apprentice for the Hartman family. And he's absolutely buzzing Tilty's officially moving into the mansion and staying with them from now on. He says his dad got completely blindsided by the whole mess, but he still nodded and gave them his blessing to stay. Garland just stands there with his arms crossed, tells the kid, "Don't worry, I'll explain everything to your mom." And Soul blurts out a grateful, "Thanks for always having our backs." So Garland lays it out for guys like them country nobles that connection to the big, high-ranking families is pure gold, and that's only the start. He tells Soul this is a massive shot for both of them. Then the kid just sits there, totally baffled, wondering what kind of chance his dad could possibly mean. Sold throws out the idea of hunting a magic stone, and the second he says it, Garland is utterly blindsided. Turns out those things never even hit the open market. So now, getting tied to the Marquis's house might be their only real shot at landing one. Sold nods along like it all snaps into place because he's certain that once they can finally get their hands on that magic stone, they finally get to forge a real, proper sword for Frey. The whole point is to hunt down a blade made for Megan-style swordsmanship, something that can actually take the force of that level of power. Because if he can pull that off, he's already sure he'll get way stronger than he is right now. Garland shifts his focus, bows low, and declares to Lord Rake that he's about to leave, handing the two kids over to him. Rake tells Garland to stay calm and ride safe. Then the kids wave from the pavement as he leaves. He tore himself away from Sold, locked in on one thing being Tilty's personal bodyguard and nothing else. He knows Waldger's still zeroing in on her, so she can't really step outside, but besides that, she's basically got free reign to do whatever she wants. Lately, life at the mansion's been weirdly smooth. Every single day, they're treated to mouth-watering meals that hit like pure luxury. And even the time they spend pounding the books in the library. Tilty finally steals a little time for herself. She plays outside with the dogs while Sold stays on guard. Turns out Sold isn't just surviving the week he's made it through with barely a hitch, and then he spots Siluria lurking behind the walls, locked in that stare like she's been watching them for days. He's been shadowing her for a full week, clocking every move, and now he's finally starting to see the real her. Turns out she's Siluria Hartman, the sister character from that Amato-like game he can't forget. Seeing her just standing there, Sold can't help but start debating should he finally be the one to step up and talk to her. But Tilty lunges first, blurting out as she spots Siluria sneaking a peek around the corner. Tilty locks eyes with her and straight up demands, "Why are you always lurking in the shadows, watching me?" Siluria just stands there, dead-eyed and stone-still, staring straight at Tilty like she's seeing right through her. Suddenly, a strange spiral flares in Siluria's eye, and her whole face snaps like she's just clocked something massive. Siluria suddenly bursts forward, wraps her arms around Tilty, and leaves. Sold standing there in the back, totally stunned. Siluria snaps that Tilty needs to come to her room like, right now, and Tilty's so thrown off she can't even make sense of what's happening. Siluria snaps, "We need to talk," grabs Tilty and starts yanking her off, while Saul scrambles forward, trying to cut in and demand what's going on. He strides in like he owns the place, tells the guy not to sweat a thing, and then boom, Sold snaps his focus straight to him instead. He's begging like, "Look, just forgive my sister for acting so selfish right now," and telling Soul to hang in there for a little while. He tells her that once Siluria hits that point, nobody can slow her down, and Sold can't help but wonder what he's really implying. Outside the mansion, everything looks totally laid back. Dogs just scamper through the grass like it's business as usual. As they settle in for tea, Starts launches into how Siluria's power works and why it's basically a blessing that lifts the entire Hartman family. Sold stared at this blessing and finally spilled the truth. Siluria's power has saved him so many times that he had to ask her permission before he even hired himself. Light calls his sister the guiding light for their whole family, and in that moment, everything finally clicks. Sold stares at the past and remembers exactly who Siluria is from the game. He flashes back to how she'd guide him when he got lost, and it hits him again the old legend about the winds that steer you through the unknown. Saul can't stop trying to connect the dots because she knows her power is meant to reveal the exact route people must follow. It's a 1 in a million gift, like handing her the raw power to glimpse the future. Sold finally realizes the truth. She's just like her sister, and she starts firing off questions, but her sister cuts her off, rushing to apologize and insisting her power is a top-level family secret. She just claims her power is special, and that pretty much seals it. She's got the clairvoyance he remembers from the game. It leaves him staring, wondering what in the world she's seeing through those eyes of hers right this second. Right nearby, a tray stacked with cupcakes and sandwiches waits for a snack, while a towering mountain of stuffed animals looms all around it. And while the guys are out of the picture, the girls kick back in a room packed with plushies. Siluria and Tilty even set up their own little tea party, just the two of them. Tilty hangs back, looking a little shaky. Then she leans in and carefully fires a question at Siluria, but Siluria just stares right back with those empty eyes and tells Tilty to ditch the formal talk because honorifics are nothing but a total headache. Tilty snaps, "Why am I even here in this room?" And Siluria shrugs it off. "I saw you two talking, so I grabbed you and brought you in." Siluria shrugs and says she only trusts what she sees because it's never wrong, so Tilty is left utterly lost. Like, wait, what even counts as seeing? Then Siluria locks eyes and explains, so fiercely it hits like a punch. Everything she does is for the brother, like bond she swears by. They just stay there among all those stuffed animals, quietly soaking in the moment together. Siluria leans in and asks Tilty if he's truly on her side, and Tilty just stares back like, "Wait, so does that mean we're officially friends now?" Siluria suddenly flashes a massive real smile and blurts out how much she truly loves her big brother, which Tilty shoots a glance off to the side and admits it in a whisper. She loves her own brother's soul just as fiercely, but then her expression drops into something heartbreakingly sad as she admits the only thing she's ever managed to do is drag him into one mess after another. Tilty locks eyes with her and blurts out that she wants to help her own big brother too, just like Siluria does for hers. Siluria just stares back, her eyes finally look clear, sharp, and locked on. So Luria tells her it's completely fine if she still has the will. She can make it happen, leaving Tilty to wonder if this whole thing is really just about how she feels. Tilty finally admitted she wanted it the same way once, and right then her magic snapped awake. But the wish wasn't about anything generic. She aimed it to save her brother, while the two girls sat there side by side. Siluria suddenly drifts back to her childhood, lost in her own thoughts all the time, but her big brother figure never left her side, and since their parents were always swamped, he stepped in, took care of her, and showered her with real kindness. Even after their parents were ripped away in a brutal accident, he clutched her close and swore he'd guard her no matter what inside their home. Siluria was thrilled to have him, but she wouldn't stop there. She was determined to find a way to help him too. And then the second she snapped that wish, her special power finally erupted to life. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Strange visions started bursting into her mind again and again, like they wouldn't stop, right as snippets of the future kept slipping out, especially anything tied to the Hartman family, and that one vision saved them for real when a massive rock slammed down exactly where they'd been standing. Turns out those wild flashes of the future were the only reason her brother stayed alive, but Siluria can't even guess when her clairvoyance will finally flare up or what visions it's going to throw at her. All she can swear on is this: every person she meets and every twist she witnesses somehow ends up saving her brother in the end. That's exactly why she snapped into action back then alone in her room, surrounded by a whole army of stuffed animals. She ordered Light to sprint into the forest south of Gus to rescue a girl from a mohawked menace, and the second he heard the name Dagora, he snapped, "I've got this." In her vision, it was just two things, this little girl and that man with the mohawk, but the second it actually went down, Sold was right there, right in the middle of it, flipping everything upside down. Siluria sprawls in her toy-filled room and whispers to Tilty that she can actually see a soul's shape, but Tilty just stares on, flat out saying she's the only one who can truly make those calls for her brother. Like stands there, staring at the glowing lights, his mind racing. Are these new people really friends or just strangers pretending? Just another pile of enemies to smash through then. The next morning, the sun climbs over the Hartman estate, and as Sold and Tilty stride through the halls, Tilty suddenly blurts that Siluria still hasn't shown up. She's totally baffled. Siluria just told her she can't see Soul at all with her powers, like it's blocked out by something unreal. Sold slammed the brakes, trying to figure out how her magic really worked, especially her clairvoyance, and then it suddenly hits him. Siluria can't actually see his future, not in any way that he's supposed to. Before he even could process it, a guard bursts into shouting for the princess. Both kids jerk in fright. Soul demands what's going on, and the guard's face drains as panic hits. Lady Siluria is totally gone. One of the older guards is absolutely losing it, shouting that every single vassal out there is hunting for the princess right this second. Tilty shouts for her brother as Sold strides in, insisting, "Don't worry, I'll help you both search too." Out on the estate grounds, guards are sprinting in every direction, shouting like crazy as the hunt for Siluria gets even more vicious. But up on the razor-thin edge of the roof, Siluria stands alone, staring into the future she can already see like it's burning a hole in her thoughts. Has always guided her down the right path before, even as she keeps looking super nervous about what's coming next. She scoots her boot toward the ledge, locked in that this exact moment is her destiny, and standing on the mansion's highest peak, she gazes out over the clouds as the wind whips higher and higher. She snaps forward and leaps off the edge with her arms wide, convincing herself, "I'll do whatever I can." As she tumbles, she shuts her eyes and simply lets the fall take her, like she's completely calm until Soul suddenly bursts onto the roof and yanks her by the hand, slamming on the brakes before her fall turns ugly. Soul blurts Siluria's name as he snatches her up, completely panicked, demanding to know what she's doing. Siluria just stares back at him, totally blank and baffled, like she can't even wrap her head around why he's here in the first place. She can't stop replaying that vision she's plummeting through the sky, completely alone, and it won't let her go, so... In the future, she saw Sold wasn't anywhere to be found, so she rushed to him and said she was just following her vision, which leaves him staring around like he's completely clueless. Then she leans in and tells him, in every single future she's ever glimpsed, the only way to save her brother was to take that jump. Sold is left absolutely frozen, barely able to. Down below, he had to blurt it out like in the guard's line, yanking it back or losing it, then screaming, "It's Sold, like, look out," because he's still dangling off the edge, and Sold snaps at her like, "If anything happens, I'd be totally devastated." They're standing together on the roof. Sold looks furious, while Siluria just stares off into nowhere like something's about to snap. But she digs in her heels, doubling down hard, saying that every move she makes is to secure the future they're fighting for. Standing on that higher rooftop, Saul roars to the top of his lungs, demanding she explain what she even means by a right future. He barrels on, pressing her, asking if she truly believes that for some destined path, he's meant to sit there and do nothing while the people he loves crumble into despair or get hit with a tragic end. Siluria says nothing, just stands there, tears pouring down her face as Sold roars that he'll never accept anything like that no matter what. He clamps his fingers around her hand and tells her straight up, "Your future isn't locked in stone. It's something you forge right in the moment." Siluria's eyes bulge in total disbelief because what he just said has absolutely blown her mind. She can't even react. Everything finally clicks for Sold, and the truth slams into place. Now he understands why she could never see his future in her visions. It's because he's a reincarnator, someone who doesn't fit this world's original script, and everything's about to go off the rails. And that original Sold Ranger was supposed to bite the dust in the game, but right now he's standing here alive and breathing. Sold grips the roof's edge and yells that he'll forge his own future then. Like freezes, realizing he doesn't have a set script to follow anymore. And then it finally catches sight of them, blurts out Siluria's name, and she whips around to shout back to her big brother. He barrels over and hauls her into a tight embrace, shoulders shaking with pure relief that she's okay and safe. Like, He leans down, snaps that she's a fool for acting so reckless, but it's obvious he's just scared to death for her. Siluria goes dead quiet, clinging to the hug as fresh tears keep streaming down her face. She finally finds her courage and tells her brother, face to face, that she's sorry for everything that went down. Like he snaps his focus to the kid and tells Soul, I owe you thank you from the bottom of my heart. He finally fesses up he really did hear the whole conversation they were selling Siluria to earlier. Like leans in and nods, telling him straight up that the future isn't handed to anyone. It's something they have to forge right now. He snaps to it and makes his move on the spot. He offers an official position serving the Hartman family. No longer just an apprentice. So Old shot his eyes up, pure excitement blazing across his face as he read. He reaches out to shake Like's hand and Like tells him to just call him from now on. Sold grins and agrees on the spot, while Siluria watches their connection click into place. Like that, she gives him a sharp look of real respect, then flat out tells Sold he's the savior of his sister and their whole house. Sold just stands there, wearing a proud grin, basking in every second of the moment. Then a knight bursts over at a sprint, yelling for the young master. Like tells him to chill because Siluria is safe, and the guy finally lets out a breath of relief that she's okay. But the knight's not finished. He insists there's a brand new disaster. A rift has suddenly opened up in the southern forest. Like and Sold both then screamed in full-on shock like the news hit him like a truck. The mood flips the second the light hits like that. And it's like the universe is screaming the day is finally here. Sold's panic spikes as he blurts, is this really a rift? And he can't shake the feeling that this is exactly what happened in the game. Like just confirmed it, things are getting messy fast because a portal to the demon realm just blew open. The sky basically rips in half when the knight screams that the outbreak is kicking off from the magic dimension. Then the rift starts. That's when Sold instantly clocks it, eyes locked on the split in the sky, and he realizes this is the massive opening he's been waiting. To finally make his move, he remembers Frey warning him that the magic dimension is a wild world of beasts and pure energy, and it's the only spot where magic ore can grow strong enough to trap any spell, and those ores turn into the magic stones that stop the words before they even finish. Because he knows he has to get his hands on the magic stone sword if he wants to have the kind of power that truly counts, because in his eyes, a sword is the only thing that can shield the people he loves, and he'll go to any lengths to lock in a brighter future for Tilty. Then he glances back at the rift, and that massive doorway into the magic dimension gapes open like a raw wound in the world. Yeah, it's basically a totally different realm, bursting with mana, the lifeblood of every spell filling the air as it starts to... It's a totally wild, deadly ecosystem that plays by rules the human world has never even heard of. In this world, every wild beast and every savage plant gets powered and pampered by pure mana. Turns out, a little mana doesn't do anything weird, it just turns into straight-up magical power. And in normal amounts, it barely even touches humans. But once the mana pressure spikes past what the body can handle, dizziness hits hard, nausea follows fast, and it just keeps escalating and from there, it goes from bad to catastrophic. Because in the worst-case scenario, so much mana flooding his body can actually kill him. Like points out that the reports are clear. This magic dimension is insanely concentrated, and the mono concentration is through the roof. To stop anyone from getting mana poisoned, he slams down the rules. Only he and the elites packed with massive mana get to go. He whips around to his team and asks Zweig and Audrey, "You ready to move?" And they roar back, "We're set." As Zwei flashes that huge grin, she tells the young master, "Don't worry, I've got your back." And then Audrey steps in with total loyalty, declares that his entire life now belongs to House Hartman. Finally, Like Hands aims the plan and says he's walking out of the estate with everything under control, and the commander reassures him, "Don't stress, nothing will go wrong." Solji locks in on the area stats, scanning magic power levels like a hawk, then zeroes in on what magic you'll concentrate next. It's basically ripped straight from the game. There's a level 20 requirement just to step in. And the air is so packed with power that if you can't handle it, even after 2 weeks, you still can't get in. So that means, and that's when Soul finally gets it just how brutal a high concentration can be. And now he's staring at this place like, wait, is this about to get terrifying? Then Wright blasts him with the truth. There's no way he can shove a kid into a magic dimension like this, and Soul snaps, convinced he's about to be left behind, but like pauses and goes, "That's what he usually says to a kid." And the second those words hit, the guy they're selling to just stands there completely frozen, totally lost. So he glanced back at his team and declared, "Sold's nothing like the other kids," then immediately scanned the group, begging for backup. Zweig lunges right in, shouting that the kid dropped Dagora in a single hit. Bam! Adria nods hard, declaring that ice swordsmanship unleashes insane power, and even Ein jumps in and says, "Look, if the kid can't use magic himself, no problem. That magic sword is going to be a massive game changer for the team. Can't even believe it still, he can't ignore it." Either his 3 best elites are all backing him like it's gospel. He stares him straight in the eye, warns that this place is deadly, but still presses will he lend them his strength anyway. Sold bursts out, yes, all in, all ready, because he's agreed to jump in and help take down the dungeon raid. He's staring at his plan like, If I can just land a magic stone in there, then I'll finally forge a sword that doesn't snap the second I go all out. But before they head out, he spins back to Tilty, calls her name, and you can see worry creeping across his face as he prepares to leave. She simply turns back, meeting his eyes with a calm, sweet smile that feels like a promise. Tilty tells him not to worry about her while he's gone, and it completely floors him. She tells everyone Siluria and the others will be there to shield her. And Siluria just flashes a peace sign. Like that, Sold yanks Tilty into a tight hug and vows with absolute certainty that he won't lose because he's got a promise locked in that he has to keep. With the whole squad watching, Tilty leaned in and told him she'd spend his time away getting stronger herself, and the two of them freeze for a beat. Grins on their faces as they trust each other completely. Finally, Tilty, Siluria, and the rest of the crew send everyone off with one last roar as they sprint straight toward the magic dimension. The whole squad is buzzing with adrenaline, and Sold and the Knights are finally marching out of there ready to go. A horse-drawn carriage blasts out of Gust, leaving the city walls behind as it barrels straight toward the southern forest at Isekai'D. They push deeper into a tangled, overgrown forest where the trail turns rougher with every step. As they move, Sold keeps glancing around, then asks if stuff like this happens all the time because right now it feels way too real. But he blurts out, "Yeah, it's my first time too," saying the demon dimension is basically just one wild, random disaster. He says it all happens by total accident. These rifts just start small, then somehow spiral out of control and keep getting bigger and bigger. And once those holes crack open, scary magical beasts come spilling out like a nightmare breaking loose. If they leave it alone, everything in that area will get wrecked, and the people living there will pay the price. So yeah, there's literally no other option. They've got to slam that rift shut before everything spirals into pure disaster. Light points out that this exact rift tore open straight in the middle of his family's territory. Light keeps going as they walk, yelling that if this rift wrecks everything, his family will be the ones who pay for it. And because there's no way the opposition's letting that slide, Soldy asks, "Wait, are you talking about the Waltzer DV Hip?" Light confirms it. Walger will absolutely try to smash the Hartman name for bringing danger into town, mostly so he could claim they don't have what it takes to run the city of Gust anymore. As they pass a roaring waterfall, Light grins and says, "Yeah, these demon dimensions are pure suffering, but they've got one sweet perk. And that's the wild haul of rare resources they can dig up inside there." He's going on about rare plants, deadly monster materials, and ores you can't get your hands on anywhere in the human world. It's so ridiculously profitable that some nobles straight up pray for new rifts to tear open because the moment they do, their pockets start getting fat. But he says the money only matters if you're strong enough to kick everyone out and clear the place for real. The second the guards clock them, they scream, "We've been waiting for you just like before," then motion them through and lead the way. The crew finally barges up to the colossal rift, one jagged tear ripped open in the air, screaming that this is the doorway into the demon dimension. Sold starts scanning the area and suddenly gets a weird creeping feeling, so he asks, "Is this really what I think it is?" One of the knights confirms it on the spot. It's the exact same spot where Sold just fought and beat Dogura not long ago. The air near the rift feels leaden, like a monstrous mouth is opening up, ready to gulp them down whole. Sold can't shake this gut feeling that something's seriously wrong, and he can't help wondering, did that rift open here for a reason, or is it just a cruel coincidence? And that's when they admit it right here. They got reports that Dagora's frozen body vanished from this exact spot. Mobrib proves it by the time anyone arrives to check. The body's already vanished, and some insane rift has ripped open right in its place. Zweig tries to play it cool, saying, "Don't freak out, Dagora's definitely dead." And Dagora's still demanding it as she hurries Saul to back her up. Sold swears they all watched it happen, but Walger, like a shadow in the dark, probably slipped someone in to snatch the body and erase every trace. With the mystery still looming over their heads, the whole crew tightens up and Light calls out the order as they finally march inside. Like a storm of cheers that screams, "It's finally time to smash the demon dimension," and the whole crew erupts with a loud cheer as Siluria charged into the rift then. Back at the mansion, she grilled Tilty about that dark power. And Tilty answered, says that ever since she was a kid, her magic would freak out the moment she felt low. Her mom even called it the power of darkness, and it all started from there. Honestly, that's terrifying as hell. Tilty straight up admits she can't control it, and once it kicks in, she usually just blacks out. She goes quiet, glances aside, and admits she's sure her strange power doesn't bring anything good. It only spells bad luck for her. Everyone she actually cares about, Siluria, stares at her for a heartbeat, then snaps, "That power isn't evil by itself, it's people who twist it and decide what it's meant to do." And she finally gets it because her own clairvoyance used to terrify her too back then. Turns out, Like was the one who would give her that advice when she was little, helping her push through the pain of being different. And she ends it with this, "Any power turns evil if you're a jerk, but use it the right way and it can make people genuinely happy." Siluria ends her speech by telling Tilty that when she uses her power the right way, that's what unlocks real happiness. And Tilty takes it to heart, shoots back, "So it really works like that," then grins like it just clicked. She finally gets it. She flashes a quick wink at Luria and thanks her, then swears she'll stop letting her powers intimidate her starting right now. With dark magic burning in her hands, she vows to make everyone smile and then declares she's starting special training right now. Next comes the battle then. A strange war cry bursts out about being happy, and the crew hammers back plant monsters. Soul barges straight into the thick of it, blasting a huge shout as he whips his blade in a colossal arc, mowing down every monster that dares to step into its path. They don't even get a breath out, these creatures screech as his slash rips through them like it's nothing. Like just steps back, eyes the whole scene, and thinks, damn, Soul's skills are on a whole other level. And he realizes it since Soul can't use magic, he's poured every ounce of effort into becoming a blade master. Like, keeps staring at him, wondering how many hours that guy hammered at his blade just to get that good. But just as things start to heat up, a winged monster slams down from the sky with a brutal screech and leaves them totally blindsided. Zweig shoots into action on the spot, shouts her Aqualance spell, and blasts out a massive wall of water. She barrels straight into the monster, blasting it hard enough to make it shriek, then slides into cover as it gets thrown back. She screams at Audrey to back her up, and he roars back like he's about to smash the hammer down for real. Audrey slams the ground with his rock hammer, unleashing her rock hammer skill, and boom, jagged stone spikes explode up everywhere. He tore straight through the last monsters, ripping them down as they choked out one final pathetic cry. For one heartbeat, everything goes dead silent as the dust and smoke from the magic attack finally start to drift away. Audrey swings by to check on Like, and when Like insists he's okay, Audrey finally breathes easier, saying the area looks clear at last. Then out of nowhere, he starts groaning and clutching his head, making everyone realize something is horribly, unmistakably wrong. Soul and the Knights freak out because he suddenly doubles over, screams his own name, and crashes to the ground. They get him dosed up with medicine, but he just slumps there, drowning in shame, then keeps apologizing for being the family head when even a tiny magic sickness floors him. Soul slips up beside him and asks, why are you even trying to reach the demon dimension? Like, seriously, he's a leader, so what's he doing pushing himself this far? He glances down and nods like, yeah, it's true. But the moment he thinks about hiding back there, he snaps he can't just sit safely and bark orders while everyone else takes the risk. He looks Solda dead in the eye and admits he never wanted to be the kind of leader who ends up with all this weight on his shoulders, so Solda is left staring, totally stunned at just how much this guy is carrying. Especially since, like, he grew up glued to his father's side because that man always stood at the very front, blade in hand, carving the way for his people. It wasn't only the folks in the Hartman house who adored him. Whole townspeople would pack in, press close, and cheer his name just to catch a glimpse of him. Everyone couldn't stop staring as his fearless father marched through anything beside him. And the crowd roared for the family to live long and like that. And with a sad smile, Like admits he's always admired that guy more than anything. And deep down, his only real dream is to grow up and become exactly like him. He was grinding to become the kind of leader everyone could trust until his world shattered. His parents died in a sudden accident, and suddenly he had to shoulder the family name alone. Like admits that he ended up stepping in as the family head. Even while he was still a little kid, he tried to play tough with everything he had. But once he stares the truth in the face, he realizes he's only made it this far because everyone else has been carrying him. He even has the house staff propping him up. And it wasn't only them, he even admits his own little sister, Siluria, was the one who rescued him too. He finally gets it. He was always the one trapped at the very back of the line while everyone else stayed up front to shield him, leaving him clenching his fists. Pure frustration swallowing him whole, he snaps to. Sold that he felt pathetic and that he can't forgive himself for becoming exactly that. Like slumps on his gear with his head in his hands, utterly crushed while Saul just stands there, staring him down. He admits that even though he stubbornly pushed himself all the way into the demon dimension, that blasted magic sickness has left him totally useless. Now he's starting to fear he'll never get as strong as his father was. Sold finally speaks up and flat out denies it, then shoots him a sharp look, shocked he even dared jump in like that. Sold tells him straight up everyone's weak, especially a guy like him, who can't even throw a single spark of magic. He drops his gaze and admits it. He keeps feeling like a useless side character, only there to be protected. Like his whole purpose is just getting saved. Sold keeps insisting that belief can shift the world, then he roars that he won't move until he masters the sword. And it all boils down to one thing: having a heart that refuses to quit. Just like Sold's dad did, back when he'd watch him train in the rain. Sold tightens his grip on his blade, eyes locked in with pure confidence, because that mindset is exactly what keeps him pushing forward. Nearby, Siluria keeps her eyes shut in prayer, while Tilty stands right behind her, staring at the moment like it's about to, rewinds the word believe in his head, then snaps to it and tells Soul, I finally get what you've been saying. Soul says real power doesn't come from force, it comes from hunger in your heart, and it only hits if you actually believe it. So yeah, thanks for the advice. He nods like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And suddenly he's ready to start actually believing it. Even someone like him, he's got the power to level up and get strong. Sold's grinning ear to ear because he wants to be someone people can brag about too, just like his father. And that dream hits him in the best way. Right then, Zweig and Audrey burst back into the group running, shouting that they've got eyes on things, then asking how it all went on our end. Zweig makes it sound like it's an easy straight shot from here, and she looks so locked in and confident that you can't help but lean in, so Audrey says this magic dimension has a layout that's way simpler than any others they've seen. Like starts laying it out to the soldiers. Those dungeon dimensions aren't real places at all. They're just twisted distortions ripped out from another world. And they usually look like little weird mini gardens, and every time one of them pops up, it's totally different. Ainz jabs a finger at the jagged stretch ahead, saying there's a massive dome farther in where the core is most likely sitting, but he sold wonders, so he needed to know what a core even is. And he told him, it's the heart of the whole magical dimension. He lays it out like the truth is burning in his mouth. The whole space is stuffed with packed magic energy, and every last drop of that power gets pumped straight from the core. The cores look totally flips with wherever it lands. Sometimes it's shaped like a plant, sometimes it's like a magic stone, and yeah, sometimes it even shows up as a magic beast, basically just a brutal monster with the core sitting right inside it. Like ends the lesson with a warning: if you smash the core, the rift to this world finally slams shut. Ainz cracks a grin and tells them these simple cores usually aren't a big deal. So Shio tells everyone to move out. Sold slips right behind them, but Like stays locked in, warning the crew not to blink for even a second, and he straight up calls out Soul, telling him to stay razor sharp. Sold's gut twists with dread every time he'd played games with sky-high magic density back then. Trouble always hit hard, and this core's level was cranked way up. The entire world turns into a storm. White energy spiraling everywhere, jagged shapes snapping into view while they hammer deeper into the distortion. Pushing toward they're swallowed by a gigantic open space, reduced to tiny specks as the rift's massive walls loom over them. Audrey whips his head around the empty space and mutters that he can't spot a single core anywhere. Grease mutters that there's nothing magical in the air, but as the cellar keeps moving, he suddenly starts noticing something feels seriously off. Then his eyes flare wide as it hits him. The threat isn't behind them at all, it's coming from a whole different angle. He yells for everyone to look up. The whole crew slams to a halt, staring up in pure disbelief as a massive shadow drops down over them, and Zweig can't even get the words out while Ein just gapes upward like, tell me you're kidding, because the size of what's bearing down on us is insane. The moment he smacks the ground, terror floods his face. Then he barely manages to blurt out that whatever's in front of him is a monster so enormous that the town swears it sells, while the knights look like tiny bugs beside its massive wings and towering tail. It's a three-eyed black dragon, and when it roars, the whole place trembles like it's about to split in two. Zweig snaps to it that legendary dragon from the stories is right here, while Ainz screams, "This isn't a tale, it's a real black dragon." Like's world starts spinning, sweat pours off him, and he blurts, "How am I even supposed to take down a core that's basically a giant monster?" Soldy steps up with his sword raised, basically screaming, "Just believe in me and you'll see it." The kids locked in, straight up swearing that no matter what kind of enemy they face, they'll come out on top. His voice booms through the cavern as he rallies the whole group. No way are they losing this fight. Sold raises his blade, locks into a razor-straight stance, and looks like he's ready to crush whatever comes next. And Zweig insists the kid's right. Ainz backs him up too, flat out saying, if that dragon's the core, then they've got to go for it. The black dragon plants its feet, unleashes a thunderous roar that shakes the entire cave. Then it cuts off mid-bah, and right as someone tries to say hold on, it's obvious the whole thing has zero interest in chatting. It yanks its mouth wide open and blasts the whole place with a tidal wave of dark flames. Sold and the knights huddle together, bracing for the scorching heat as the flames crawl closer so they're stuck. And all they can do is scramble out before it's too late. A booming voice screams for a water wall, and the spell erupts in a massive splash that smashes straight into the fire. Sold snaps at Zweig, who's still gripping the shield, and he can't believe how brutally powerful these flames are. Zweig snaps into reality. Her magic is about to crack, and she blurts to the guys that she can't keep it up much longer, which makes everyone yell back up as the dragon revs up for another brutal strike. Saul just glares, done with the waiting. He snaps into action and prepares to make his move. He screams at the top of his lungs as the entire room erupts in roaring fire and wild magic. The dragon jerks its head up in pure terror as a gigantic strike crashes down out of nowhere, something it never even saw coming, and a blinding flash erupts as the impact slams straight into the beast's head. Sold snaps to it. This isn't just about Tilty anymore. He finally cracks the real trick to using his power. So he screams that he's doing it to protect his friends, and in one blazing flash, he unleashes the water wolf technique. The knights are losing their minds over his magic ice sword. Yeah, I can't even wrap my head around the fact that this kid froze an entire dragon. The monster's frozen solid, locked like a statue in a slab of thick ice, totally shut down for now, just standing there, staring, while it spirals on one thought. This kid's power is straight up insane. He spirals into his own thoughts, finally admitting the truth. Fear hits so hard his body just can't move. He clenches his fist so hard it shakes. and honestly feeling pathetic that he's the only one who froze. But Sold screams that it's not over yet, yanking his guard back up as he braces for the next round. Sold stares at the huge frozen chunk and demands, "Tell me the black dragon's still alive, Gibeten." And just then, even the monster crashes through the ice and turns it into a million shards. Then it towers up, roars so hard the whole world trembles, and it keeps going while as the terrifying screech erupts through the air, it thrashes back awake, snapping up rows of razor-sharp teeth like it's showing you exactly what it's made of. The dragon squints and glares them down, then shakes its head hard to shake loose the last of that frost. When the beast lunged to strike, one knight shouted for cover, and a massive rock wall slammed down like a thunderclap, trapping the beast in place. The group stays hidden for now, and Audrey says they can lay low a while yet. He snaps that they don't stand a prayer of winning. Soul refuses to quit. He tells them to hunt down the dragon's weak spot, and that advice totally knocks them off guard. Sold swears he knows exactly what he's talking about. He still remembers how this beast turned the game world into a full-blown nightmare, and they've got to zero in on one exact point, the reverse scale. He tells them weak hits won't even leave a dent in its armor, and that's exactly why they could never bring it down before. Sold grins and says the only way to beat this is to slam the reverse scale on the dragon's throat, because that's the one strike that dishes out enough damage to trigger what comes. Like, "Hold on, take it down," she blurts, and the moment it clicks, worry hits hard. How are they even supposed to get close enough? But crossing those massive flames is going to be pure nightmare fuel, so the whole crew crouches low behind the rocks while Ines snaps his gaze over, demanding, "Can we really count on you for this?" And Audrey fires back, "Yeah, I just have to land one perfect heavy hit." Right on that weak spot, Zweig swears they'll throw everything they've got behind him, and Audrey declares the knights will be the decoys. Sold finally gets the opening he's been waiting for. He signs on to the plan, but then he stares at his weapon and spots the huge issue. His sword might not make it so. Zweig shoves her own into his hands, but every time he unleashes a high-level move, the blade shatters, and Sold knows. He's got just one shot, and he tells them he'll make it count then. Right when he's about to move, he stops and yells at them to wait. Every single person freezes and whips their gaze to him just standing there in the middle of the cave, while that dragon keeps looming nearby. He locks eyes with them, wears a dead serious face, and says he wants to jump into the fight too. He's here to help. The knights are totally stunned by Like's request. He blurts it out in absolute disbelief, so they all shout back, trying to talk him out of it, because there's no way he should throw himself into that kind of danger, especially since Audrey is terrified of one thing. What happens if the young master gets hurt because he's saying if even one disaster strikes him, it'll mean the whole world ends? But Like clamps his fist down hard, trembling as he blurts out that he knows exactly what's on the line. He's fully aware of the danger. Yet he refuses to sit back and watch everyone else fight, and then he finally snaps out, cuts through all that tension, and straight up says he believes in him, staring him right in the eye, "I've got you," and then suggests they just dive in and take the dragon down together. And the knight watches, jaw clenched, holding his ground, while then she finally breaks into a confident smile, nods once, and fully agrees with the plan. Sold flashes back, and the two of them are locked in, ready to pour everything they've got into it. Seeing the young master step up like this hits the knights right in the chest. Pride rises fast, even if one of those old veteran knights just lets out a grunt to cover what he's really feeling. He forces himself to lock onto the mission, but when everything crashes in a heartbeat, someone yells for them to duck. Then Audrey explodes into motion, shoving them out of the way just in time. The dragon slams to the ground, and its gigantic jaws snap at everyone in its path. Like snaps, realizes that they've been spotted, blurts that they finally found them while the knights scramble into position, and then one of them kicks it off by blasting an aqua chain spell, and suddenly water whirls through the air like a storm. Then he blasts in with a rock lock move, ripping massive chunks of stone straight out of the ground, and the water wraps tight around the dragon's head, clamping its jaws shut while the heavy rock slammed down on its claws, pinning it so hard it couldn't budge an inch. The dragon growls like it's trapped behind stone, and the knight grits his teeth and summons every ounce of strength to pin the monster in place, and then he whips his head around and orders Saul to strike right now. No hesitation. He's fighting for his life to keep the dragon pinned down, and he blurts out that he can't hold this magic for much longer. Sold snaps back that he's got it, clenching his sword hard as he steps up, and he bursts into a sprint toward the beast, knowing right where to land the reverse scale. Sold finally spots the glowing reverse scale on the dragon's neck, and he charges ahead, yelling, "It's right there!" as he throws every ounce of strength into one final strike. The dragon recoils from the brutal hit, but it refuses to drop. Then it rockets skyward, blasting a gigantic shockwave that hurls dirt and rocks flying in every direction. The knights are slammed with surprise, one of them barely even processing how violently fast it moved, and right away, another soldier panics, watching their target slip out of reach and vanish into the sky. He blurted a warning at the top of his lungs, cursing under his breath as the truth hit. Someone had just stolen their edge. Up above, the dragon rumbles a deep growl, staring down at the knights who are stuck there, cursing, and one of the men finally blurts that he feels totally worthless now that the beast is out of reach. The dragon locks eyes with that icy slit gaze, waiting patient and deadly for the exact second to end them. Clenches his teeth, feeling completely useless because he can't stop a single thing about the beast. And right as he starts beating himself up, his eyes shot wide, and one glimpse of it slammed the brakes. He froze dead in his tracks. He spots the kid standing there alone, explodes with panic, and screams for him to get out of there, then run for his life. But Soul doesn't even blink. He plants his feet, keeps that calm stare locked on them, and looks totally in control, like he's got this whole thing handled. The kid blurts out that he actually believes in him, and honestly, it's the last thing anyone expects to hear right now. Like he just stood there, frozen in stunned silence, staring at the kid's confidence. Then the dragon hangs right over them, jaws creaking wide, as a blinding light starts to surge and swirl in its throat. It unleashes a massive surge of energy that smashes into the ground with enough force to obliterate everything in its path. A massive burst of dust and smoke erupts, swallowing the ground whole while the dragon hangs overhead watching. The beast peers through the thick haze, bares its teeth, and waits ready to see if anything actually survived that impact. Saul slams down from the sky like a living meteor, driving his blade straight for the dragon. With his heart in his throat, he screams that he's betting everything on the kid. He's the one who has to end this. They surge forward in one last desperate shove. Pressure skyrocketing as Sold snaps into position and lines up the shot. The shot lands and his scream hits back like a promise because his face says it loud. He's not backing down, not for a second. He throws every ounce of strength into the swing, unleashing a crushing strike that slices straight through the beast. The dragon doesn't even get a split second to react before the hit's power slams straight through it and turns everything to wreckage. The massive creature slammed into the ground, blasting up a brutal cloud of dust and smoke the moment the fight finally ended. The nearby knights erupt in cheers because they didn't just win, they crushed it, and every last one of them swears the teamwork was straight up on another level. Soul lets out a small laugh and basically declares, "Yeah, the win's mine, I held it together." But nah, he's not buying it, and he tells the kid straight up, "You're the real reason they're all still standing." Stan stood there, staring down, muttering that he wanted to be brave, but the moment that dragon came into view, his legs locked up and refused to move. But seeing Saul launch himself into the battle with zero hesitation lit a fire in him, giving him the courage he needed. He tells the kid that watching him stand there, fearless, in front of a monster like that, is exactly the hero he always worshipped. And when he starts thanking him, Soul's whole face turns red from the praise. The knights just laugh it off, claiming a shattered sword is a small price for slaying a dragon. And even Jake offers up his own blade, right up to... Now that the beast is finally gone for good, they swing into action and start heading out. As he looked back and saw the stop signs sold and out, something cold crawled down his spine. And he's right. The dragon's eyes jerk open, and it's staring right at them again. Dark energy surges through its scales, and it looks even more terrifying than before, and then he Sold loses it, staring in disbelief at how it's still moving, because he aimed straight for the weak point. Sold realizes he utterly misjudged the black dragon, and the truth hits him like a wall. This is as bad as it gets, so as the flames are closing in and his mind starts sprinting through a million thoughts while the others can only stare, trapped, and scream. But Soul doesn't even get a second to think. His body takes over instantly, and in that split second, the dragon unleashes a brutal wall of fire so powerful it should have erased everyone on the spot. Ain's grabs keep yanking him under while Audrey stares as the inferno floods over them. But somehow, it's like the whole scene is begging for a sale because there's no way that kid could have survived a direct hit like that. Up in the sky, the dragon's breath seems to devour everything below until that tiny bubble clings on, unshaken. And even the dragon looks totally baffled as the flames start to swirl, rip away from the target, and vanish, leaving the next moment hanging in the air like a cliffhanger. Leaving the knight behind, she just stood there, staring in pure shock. Audrey gasped, "What is even happening?" And when she looked closer, like froze because the fire was getting dragged away, like pulled right out in front of him, right into one sharp spot. Then all that heat and energy starts collapsing onto Soul, like he's a living vacuum ready to suck it all in. Like stairs rising from the blast, he stares in shock, then blurts it out loud because Saul is standing dead center in that scorching heat. He snaps to it. This is exactly like his clash with Fenrir. He can feel it in his bones. The dragon is pouring out demonic power, so he clenches his sword so hard his knuckles ache. Then bam! Inspiration hits like lightning, sparking a brand new move, and he snaps into wild, mad laughter. And he swears this is the greatest feeling of all, watching dark energy whirl around him like a storm. Like Scream Sold blaring his name while the knights stand frozen in pure shock. Audrey can't even process it, and he blurts, "Wait, did that kid just swallow all those flames?" And like realizes the Sold literally turned the flame into a brand new blade. Sold's no kidding. Thanks to the black dragon, which told the beast that because of this attack, he started evolving, and now he's getting even stronger. With those marks on his face, he looks like a whole new person, standing there with that massive grin. The dragon bellows in pure frustration, but Soul just stays icy calm because he's ready. Like and his knights are dead silent, staring in shock because nobody should be able to take a dragon's breath and turn it into a sword like this. So what kind of insane power is sealed inside the soldier's secret? Saul shoots a calm, steady look, then completely locks in, ready to rip the curtain off and show everyone exactly how lethal his demon god style really is. Soldi just stands there, dark marks blazing across his face, soaking up the power like it's his. Then he admits it. He's finally learning how to trigger this brand new ability. He's telling himself, you've got to lock into that exact stance first, then take the enemy's strike straight on. Only now, as the idea clicks in, he realizes that just eating a hit won't make it work. There's a whole mental game underneath, and that's the real key. Because he knows he's got to stay fueled with the will to protect himself and everyone he loves, so he digs in and holds his ground as the dragon rips open another massive blast of energy. It's locking onto him and charging straight at his face. Every last corner of the area detonates at once, ripping the sky open with a blinding, white-hot flash. He totally snaps, blurts out Sold's name in a screaming panic, believing the kid just got vaporized, but the soul stays locked in because now he realizes this power isn't done yet. And he can feel that demon god energy squirming deep inside his own body. He names the technique Ice Wolf Flash and tells you this. The blade now drips with ice power, freezing anything it even taps. It's like the sword is carved from ice, but deep inside, his own body brims with the hunter's instinct that closes in on the prey. Sold can feel a wild power stirring in him when he thinks about what's really lurking inside his sword, and it's like he's got a wolf's speed pounding through his body. And his gaze turns razor sharp as he prepares to dive from the sky and hit with full force. Then it hits him. He's gripping the black dragon's blade of flame, and he doesn't get to breathe before the next move, so he rockets ahead, shouting for the Luck Dragon Black Dragon's flame wings. He screams like the world is ending. Then his entire body ignites, turning into a blazing streak that looks exactly like a dragon. Ripping across the sky at breakneck speed, it tore open the air and snapped a blazing trail behind it. The dragon spots it coming, but it's already one step behind, too slow to react, and he raked the beast with taunting screams, daring it to swallow its own roaring flames. He rockets into the dragon's neck with every ounce of strength, and then a massive pillar of fire erupts straight upward, KOing the dragon's head back and turning the whole place into wreckage. Like, in those nights, they're totally losing it, screaming and cheering at the top of their lungs because Soldi's blade is completely snapped right at the handle, and yeah, that last hit was him pouring everything he had into one final swing. He walked right out, leaving him stranded in that thick smoke, fist pumping like a madman as he tore into the air, celebrating that massive win. The Black Dragon. The very core of this demon dimension finally starts to crumble into nothing, and once the dust finally clears, the entire crew just freezes in place, gasping for breath like they barely survived. Sold beamed at Like with a massive grin while Like just stood there, utterly stunned at the kid's overwhelming power. As the dragon vanishes into thin air, a colossal magic stone clatters into place, glowing brightly right in front of them. So Audrey blurts out, "What's something that huge even worth?" And Ein fires back, "It could sell for a cool billion without breaking a sweat." He sells the stares at the giant magic stone, and then it hits him. This find is huge. He can actually pull it off. He finally knows he can forge the sword he's been dreaming up. Sold grins, picturing Tilty's joy exploding when she gets her gift, and tells her to just wait. Back at the Hartman estate, everything snaps back to Tilty because right now she's straining with every ounce of strength. She fights through sheer pain, barely keeping a scream from bursting out as she strains to control a terrifying whirl of dark energy, while Siluria cheers her on. Tilty just grunts, "Shh," like she can't afford a sound. She's pouring every ounce of control she's got into it. Siluria grins and says she's almost got it. But then Tilty finally reaches her breaking point. She gasps for airwaves like her body just quit, watching that dark power she was sculpting crumble in an instant, shattering into 1,000 tiny pieces. She drops to her knees, lungs burning, fury flaring because she failed again. So Siluria steps in and tries to get her to finally take a break after nonstop training. But Tilty just lifts her head and says she's not stopping. Her big brother is grinding hard and she's got to match his pace. Siluria fires back at Tilty, saying she's being way too stubborn with her training. So Tilty throws her head back laughing, blurts out that she's sorry, and then bang, a colossal explosion tears through the whole building, and Siluria gasps, then screams as the walls rattle and dust rains down everywhere. Siluria jabs a finger toward the window and says the noise is coming from outside, leaving Tilty staring like, wait, what on earth is happening? In the garden, a massive cloud of smoke and rubble blankets the spot where the gate used to stand. The Hartman Knights lay sprawled across the ground, dust in their mouths, barely able to groan as they were crushed into the dirt. Commander Ein gapes at the smoke in pure disbelief because there's no way he was supposed to be dead, yet he's standing right there. Turns out it's Dagora. This total monster strolls straight through the flames, and his hand blazes with scorching heat. With a creepy grin glued to his face, he prowls the estate, scanning every corner like, "Where are you hiding?" Dogura snarls at someone like a total damn brat, swears this time he's for sure going to kill them, And then, he lunges forward with his scorched hand, snatches another guard, and flashes this bizarre bracelet crawling with eyeballs. Tilty's brother stands out in the wasteland, staring at Dagora's frozen body, and shouts that it's time to wake up. He promises he'll hand him a gift either as dog, or with his face frozen behind that silent screen of ice. He reaches out and claims he's using the power of darkness to crush the darkness itself. Then that creepy bracelet of eyeballs snaps onto Dogura's wrist, clinging tight like it's alive. Dagora groans as he crashes onto the ground, and Tilty's brother leans in and demands, "So, you're finally back among the living." Looking up at his savior, Dagora calls him Master. As a terrifying warning slams down, this is his absolute last chance with the last chance. With frost in his stare, Tilty's brother snaps the final order, "Go and bring that brat down." Dogura feels that raw power surge through his body so hard it practically shouts to his master. He doesn't even have to say a word. And then he unleashes a brutal roar, screaming that this time he's absolutely going to kill him. Right outside the Hartman estate, he barks for Saldo to come out because he's got him pegged. The kid's hiding inside. Dagora shot his hand up, blasting dark energy outward, while the eyeball bracelet on his wrist flared bright with raw power. Rage twists his face as he screams that he'll blow everything in his path to bits. The ground starts cracking under the pressure, and Siluria's frozen in terror as Tilty yells at him to stop. Siluria tries to tell him her brother isn't around, but Tilty cuts in fast. She's not letting anyone hurt the Hartman. Dagora lets out a creepy laugh, flashes that grin, and taunts Tilty as the Priestess of Darkness, whispering that he's been waiting to see her. He leans in close, smirking like he owns the night, daring her to show him her dark power one more time. Tilty orders Siluria to stay back, choking out an apology for what's happening, but Siluria snaps back that she doesn't need to say sorry. Siluria tells Tilty, "Even if my visions dragged you to this mansion like some cruel fate, everything's different now." Tilty is completely caught off guard by just how dead serious she's acting. Siluria tilts her head, locks eyes with them, and vows, "I'll protect you." Because from this moment on, she's taking control of her own destiny. Tilty glares at the young girl, calls out Siluria's name, and catches the kid's brand new resolve then. But on the far side of that broken ground, Dagora just bursts into laughter at the thought of ever protecting someone. He snaps, screaming at them to shut up, then whips his arm forward to land the strike. Tilty snapped into action, shouted for her airwall, and wrapped both of them in a swirling shield of wind. She doesn't just block, she hurls a massive vortex of air that slams straight back into Dagora. Rage is boiling in Dogger's chest as he snaps at the brat, warning him not to underestimate a single thing he's got. He unleashes a colossal blast of energy, shattering the entire area as Siluria lets out a desperate scream. Tilty crumples face first into the dirt, groaning through the pain while Siluria panics and yells her name. But Dagora is already there, pushing through the smoke and yanking Siluria by the collar like he owns the place. He leans in with a chilling grin, whispering to the priestess that the time has come. Hand over that dark power. All of it. Dagora clamps his grip on Tilty and screams for her to finally hand over that ultimate power. Siluria shrieks for him to stop, and Dagora snarls that he'll kill every last one of them unless he gets exactly what he's demanding. He just stands there, cackling, while a massive storm of dark energy whips into a furious swirl around them. He's completely losing it, drool spilling out as he gets obsessed with that rush when the power of darkness finally crashes into the world. Siluria gets slammed into the very heart of the surge, sobbing Tilty's name as chaos swallows everything around her. Tilty glances up and bam, she sees a vision of her mom, reassuring her that everything is going to be okay. It gives Tilty the boost she's been craving, and even with tears blazing in her eyes, she forces the words out she can handle this. Siluria jolts her gaze upward in pure shock, locked on Tilty as the entire air around them starts to twist and turn. Tilty digs her heels in and snaps that she's not afraid of the dark anymore because from here on out, she's taking control. Dark energy surges toward her, ripping up from the ground in massive, razor-sharp waves that batter the streets around Siluria. Tilty is completely crushed as a storm of voices, pain, and heartbreak rips through her mind, leaving her feeling like she can't hold it in anymore then. In the pitch-dark swirl, she finally snaps, clutching her head as she lets out a scream that tears through everything. Siluria came sprinting in, yelling her name, while Tilty crumpled to her knees, barely holding herself together. As her mind feels like it's shattering into pieces, she still forces the words out and tells Siluria she's okay because she has to. Turns out this dark power is zeroing in on every single bad feeling Tilty's burning with. Right this second, she finally gets it. If she wants to control this energy for real, she has to crush the fight raging inside her own heart. She's scared out of her mind that the heartbreak and pain she's already survived might be way more than she can ever push past. Even while Dagora keeps her locked up, she strains toward the shadows and pleads with the darkness for a favor. Tears stream down her cheeks as she pleaded with the power, begging it not to turn her into another source of misery. And so she begs for a miracle, turning it into real power that can spread happiness to everyone, no exceptions. Dagora looks absolutely terrified and blurts out, "Wait, what the heck is even happening right now?" As the darkness surges in a massive wave around them, he clings to Tilty, refusing to let go. Suddenly, giant shadow hands burst up from the ground and clamp down, snatching Dogura right out of the dirt. And he totally snaps, screaming that something grabbed his arm as the shadows crawl in and swallow him. Tilty plants her feet, faces the darkness head-on, and screams at it that it better listen to her because she's not backing down and she's got something to say. Then she unleashes hell. She tears into Dagora with a surge of energy and he screams like it's the end. Soluria just sits on the ground, frozen in shock at what she's seeing. She can't even move because what comes next hits her like a wave. She flashes this tiny smile and leans in to whisper, "Tilty actually did it, she beat it." As Tilty stands tall against the dark power, Soluria suddenly realizes she's not fighting it at all, she's the one controlling the darkness, and Tilty clenches her resolve, brings her hands together, and declares with fearless certainty that this sorrow doesn't stand a chance against her strength. Dagora is sealed in the shadow's grip and the hold starts slipping. He thrashes and screams, begging whatever's got him to let him go. So Tilty refuses to fold, she summons the darkness itself, trapping him while she pours every last bit of power into that spell. Peering at the entire scene through a magic crystal ball, this mysterious guy can't help but grin. He finds the whole display ridiculously impressive. The masked man just stands there, swearing this is, without a doubt, the true power of the Priestess of Darkness. But he can't shake the feeling that there's more, because that abyss of darkness is so deep it still refuses to make sense. He just locks into a stare and blurts out Tilty's name like he's betting the universe is about to throw another punch. Back in the middle of the fight, Dagora is shrieking as the shadows clamp down and crush him, and Tilty just snaps at him to quit already. Soluria's on the sidelines, grinning like crazy, completely stunned at just how incredible Tilty is. Dagor's face contorts into a massive scream as the darkness's power crashes down and finally swallows him whole, until he can barely gasp at all, just his hand reaching out right as the shadows swallow him whole. A creepy arm crawling with eyes lunges out of the dark and clamps down on whatever's left. Then a colossal burst of energy tears through the area, blasting Tilty backward as she shrieks in pure panic. Soluria scrambles to shield her eyes, stunned by how crushing the dark feels, and she can't even wrap her head around the fact that they got blown away. Tilty's slumped on the ground, stunned and trying to piece together what the hell just happened, when both of them snapped their heads up because a tiny winged figure was hovering high above, casting its shadow as he just abandoned that winged, demon-looking monster with way too many eyes, and it kept floating there, smirking like it knew exactly what it was doing. The creature looms over Tilty, sneers that she's a brat, and threatens to kill her, no jokes, no mercy. Soluria just freezes, staring at the beast in stunned silence, barely forcing out the words as her mind screams, "It's really flying!" But Tilty looks even more terrified saying Dogura's name, and the moment he realizes it, he knows that thing isn't him at all. She stares at the monster hanging over them and goes, "Yeah, it's crystal clear this isn't human." The monster grins like it owns the world, tells her to die on the spot, and lunges at her with a massive clawed hand. Soluria shrieks at the top of her lungs, demanding Tilty just get out of there. Tilty's eyes go huge with shock when she realizes she can't move fast enough. Then everything hits at once, like a punchline mid-scream. Then he gets sold off, and boom, he rockets into the scene as he screams for him to stop. The two of them slam down with a brutal impact, and a massive burst of dust and light blasts the area clean then, and Soluria beams up at them with the biggest grin, finally feeling safe because help has arrived at last. Tilty glances over and her face lights up as those guys step right between her and that thing. Soluria yells to her older brothers, Sold and Reich, demanding to know if they're really okay. At last, the rift to the demon world shuts for good, and the whole crew turns and heads straight back to town. One of the knights screams from up front in the carriage while the other shouts, and the whole thing jumbles into chaos in the back. As they push closer to the city, smoke starts curling up from the mansion, and the whole place suddenly feels alive with danger. Everyone crowds outside the walls to huddle up and map out their plans, so Sol tells Like and the others this he and Like fired ahead of the group by using Like's wind magic to take flight. The second they show up, Sol blurts out, "So how's Dagora back from the dead?" while Like glares at the filthy monster and can't stop wondering what the hell it even is. Then Soluria snatches her brother's arm and blurts that Dagora was rocking a super creepy bracelet. She says the moment everything started glowing weirdly, Dogra didn't just change, he fully transformed into that monster right then. Sold spots the item in the game and immediately starts freaking out. Was that thing really in there? And is it actually cursed? Turns out the tool is cursed to the core. It can actually drag a person straight into becoming a demon. The whole crew gets blindsided when a raspy voice cackles and barks, "Soul to Brat finally decided to show up, huh?" The monster's planted in the dust, roaring the same threat, "I'm going to kill Sold," over and over, like it can't stop. Dagor tore loose a blood-chilling scream, "Die," and blasted a gigantic wave of dark energy straight at them like yells for them to dodge it, while Solid snatches Soluria and drags her out of the way. And that monster just towers there, eyes locked on the chaos, while his power ignites and floods the entire area with light. Everyone slams to a halt and gapes at the giant dust cloud billowing where the blast tore in, but then the explosion hits like a monster, shattering the ground and blasting debris through the air in every direction. Light can't believe the chaos in his hands, and Tilty's just staring like, I can't even wrap my head around how much magic power this guy's throwing off. Siluria yanks her brother into the moment, and the Sold clenches his fist, shaking with the helpless wish that for once he'd have a sword to swing back. Suddenly, a hand shoots out and orders his soul to grab the sword he's clutching, catching everyone completely off guard. They all scream for Ains. There he stands, drenched in blood, barely able to stand, firing off a desperate plea. Like, Siluria, forgive me. He claps the deal shut, yells his name one last time then. As the old man's strength crumbles, he drops right on the spot. Sold clenches the sword handle, jaw tight, thinking, if I just finish it the right way, everything changes. Like she's screaming for everyone to lock onto the wounded, Siluria can only freeze in stunned shock as Sold steps up. Sold grins and says he'll take the whole fight alone, while Siluria just stands there staring as her giant of a brother marches straight toward the monster. Bye. Siluria forces calm, tells Tilty everything's gonna be fine, and swears this nightmare will end soon. Saul tells Dagora he's about to show him what's what, and right then his blade ignites, glowing with scorching heat. He unleashes the legendary black dragon flames, then whips his sword through the air in one massive arc of searing fire. Tilty's slammed flat by the flaming sword, staring in disbelief like she's just witnessed a brand new killer technique for the very first time. The monster snaps and howls about the sword like he's getting crushed by the overwhelming heat bearing down on him. Dogura dives in screaming that he wants the soul to die, but the kid roars back and charges straight at him. The moment they crash together, a brutal burst of fire and dark energy erupts, shredding the air between them. The monster's claw crashes into the power of souls, detonating a sharp, blinding burst of force. A massive blast of energy erupts outward, flooding the entire courtyard in an instant. Dogura gets slammed backward by the brutal impact, roaring like a maniac as his feet skid out from under him. Like in Siluria, you're glued to the screen in pure disbelief as Tilty explodes into cheers, completely wired and hyped up by Sold still standing there, totally calm as the smoke finally fades, even with his blade shattered in pieces. A massive crater gapes open where the impact hit, and everyone can't help but stare like, that kid just unleashed enough power to shake the whole world. He'd just used it when a sick, creepy laugh bursts out of the smoke. Saul whips around while Siluria blurts, "What's happening?" And Dogura jerks himself upright, dragging his broken body back up like a walking nightmare. Sold is drenched in sweat now, and he's yelling that there's no way Dagora could still be alive, but the monster snaps his mouth open and roars his dark prominence attack, trying to end it for good. Dagora throws his arms wide, and a wave of dark energy rips through his entire body. Soldier's sold. It's like he can't even figure out what he's doing, while Lycan Siluria just freezes in total shock, unable to believe it. That light blasting from the monster's face keeps surging brighter and brighter, until it's so blinding you can't see then, just as everything goes white. Then boom, the entire area gets ripped open by a massive energy blast, and everyone below just stares in shock, with the kind of yelling that screams, self-destruct move, but yes. While Siluria tears through the chaos, screaming Sold's name as the whole town starts panicking. Everyone jabs their fingers at the sky, and the big question hits, what on earth is that light? A giant ball of pure destruction looms right over the city, dead center above the Hartman estate, hanging there like a countdown to disaster. The attack barrels straight for the mansion, and the citizens instantly flip out, losing their minds as it closes in. Soul just froze there, drowning in the wild pressure of the magic until he realized he didn't have a what. Grab a sword to shut it down, then shout to Siluria to evacuate everyone close by as they scramble for their lives. Panic slams into Sold's chest as the clock roars on, and he realizes there's no way he's making it in time, but right when he thinks he's done for, a girl suddenly steps into his path. Tilty grabs her big brother by the resolve and tells him, "Leave it to me." Soldia freezes, utterly stunned, and blurts out her name right there while she screams at him, demanding he just trust her as she lets out. All this insane dark energy, Sarah can't believe it. She's actually seeing it happen. She kept wrestling with it, terrified she'd finally found a kind of strength that wouldn't. She refuses to lose to the dark. She's clamping down on a massive power she's barely letting out, and it's about to burst. Right over the house, she snarls through it like the power is about to rip her clean off the ground. As the whole area starts rumbling and shaking under the crushing pressure, Tilty goes all in on one last brutal push, screaming for the dark energy to blast the enemy into nothing. The windlock snaps on, sealing the whole area inside a colossal, twisting vortex. The monster gets totally blindsided, lets out a weird scream, and as the spiraling air starts shredding its attack, while it just stares in total shock, yelling, "What the hell is happening to me right now?" Siluria snaps her gaze upward. Eyes blazing wide, she can't wrap her head around it, as a huge flood of wind magic suddenly swallows the sky. Like Tilty, and Sold yells to his friends that it's time to back her up full force. Siluria jumps in with them, shouting that they'll protect everyone right here, right now together as a damn team. Like he's totally losing it, screaming that they're gonna save the Hartman family and stop this whole town from getting wrecked. The monster howls in agony as the wind pressure starts smashing its hand, barking that they're all damn brats. But Tilty clenches her jaw, tells herself she won't budge for a second, and locks in determined to make sure everyone finally gets to be happy. The monster starts to crumble as wind magic tears through its body, and all it can do is choke out. Right before the giant vortex fully devours the whole area, the final few sounds fade into nothing. The weight crushes him, and the monster's colossal hand gets ripped clean off in an instant. The three of them huddle together, pouring out the last shred of magic they had left. When the dust finally settles, he lets out this massive sigh of relief and goes, "We actually did it." And that's when things get real, because this is Siluria beams and happily says yes as everyone crowds up in front of the house, yelling and cheering like they just stole victory itself. Tilty is so fired up, she barrels straight into the crowd, shouting that she did it, and then calling him her big brother, but Saul just freezes in place, eyes glassy, completely stunned, and Tilty finally clocks what she just blurted out, then immediately repeats it, mortified, her face burning with embarrassment. Sold shot in fast to bury the awkward silence, scooped her into a massive hug, and blurted that she was incredible. Sold is getting totally swamped by everything happening right now, while Tilty just giggles and clings to him, only he can't. But he can't quit replaying the magic she just unleashed. This terrifying power doesn't just scare darkness, it swallows it whole and wipes it clean the moment it touches. And that right there is why she's the deadliest villainess ripped straight from the game world. Standing there with that dark aura swirling around her, it's obvious she's drawing power straight out of pure despair. Sold clutches her tight, swearing right there that he'll never let this kind of power slip into evil hands. Next, Chex swept over the area and pointed out the best part. Because the estate had been evacuated, nobody even got hurt. He sounds like he's glowing with relief, like he can't stop smiling because everyone's safe. He starts replaying the attack in his head and demands to know if Dagora was planted there on Walger's orders. But, doesn't buy it. He snaps that Walger might be a fool, yet he's not stupid enough to push this hard. Not after. Because his real plan isn't just to win this moment. It is to take over the whole town, one step at a time. He looked straight up stressed as he warned them. If the townspeople found out Walger killed those people, it would spell total condemnation, so he's convinced it's just Dagora losing it again. 90, sure, this was a personal rampage because he still remembers Dagora looking like a full-on monster. Obsessed with tearing into the sold. He sold the chimes and swore eyes wide that the cursed tool Siluria hinted at was the spark that kicked off the entire rampage. Frey and Siluria watch as Like's jaw drops in full shock. He keeps blurting, "Cursed tool," over and over, like he can't even process what he's seeing. Sold leans in and tells them it's a cursed gear, slap it on, and it floods the wearer with wild, demonic power. He starts rewinding his own game knowledge, realizing this rare item is usually trapped in the magic dimension. Then the memory cuts off right there. It all reminds him of that old document he read once. He says, "It warned you can gain that power, but you'll get swallowed alive by evil." And Frey nods right along. She's like, "Are you kidding?" Dagora's bracelet feels downright creepy. It's just leaking magic nonstop. The group huddles in the wreckage, staring at that gift. Who in their right mind would ever target Dagora with something like this? Soulfield clicks. If it wasn't Walger, then it had to be a whole crew. A shadowy group called the Titans pulls the strings from behind the scenes. As soon as the thought hits, Sold can't stop imagining the Titans, and he starts to wonder if their real master plan all along was to snatch Tilty. It hits like a brick because once he really gets it, Dagora could have wiped out every single one of them. He finally admits it's the truth. But no matter how hard he thinks, he still can't crack what the Titans want in the end. Right when the silence finally settles, Siluria suddenly blurts out, "I'm totally fine." And it completely knocks everyone off guard. She hardens her eyes with pure grit, yells that she's not about to get beaten by Titans, and declares she's ready to throw hands too. Saul just stares at her, but the second it hits, his thoughts snap straight back to Tilty and the danger swallowing her whole. So they jump in yeah, our power's the real deal. And honestly, it's amazing to see Frey laughs and praises them for grinding their training for 3 whole days, but Sold is totally crushed. He swore it had only been 1. He says they were only there for 24 hours, but then he breaks it down. Time runs totally different in that demon dimension. Then it clicks. Sold remembers his game knowledge, and he realizes one day inside that dimension always turns into 3 days in the real world. Honestly, they look absolutely fired up because with Sold and Tilty teaming up, their crew basically can't be beaten anymore. Sold stares at Tilty and realizes her power might be the strongest force out there. It's the ultimate villain's legendary power, the one people whisper about as the power of despair. He snaps into a terrifying thought. Ruin's dark destiny is waiting for her, then grabs her shoulders tight as Siluria wonders why her brother is acting so weird. Groans ripped out of her as she fought a wave of panic, totally crushed by the thought of her fate, and Tilty clocks it instantly. She blurts out, "Are you okay? Because you suddenly look like you just saw a ghost?" Saul tries to play it cool and tells everyone he's fine, but Siluria can tell something's seriously wrong as everything around him starts to blur, and in that single heartbeat he realizes his head isn't worth the fight anymore, working right anymore. Tilty stares at him with eyes bulging, and pure terror grips him like he's about to explode. Like and Siluria completely lose their minds. shrieking in pure shock as they watch him begin to tip over. Sold's legs buckled, he slammed into the ground, and the three of them went scrambling to get him back on his feet. Siluria stands there, dead still, watching everything unfold right in front of her. While Like starts screaming, Tilty looks like she's about to snap both of them. They burst into the middle of the courtyard, Siluria shrieking his name the second they finally reach him. And later that night at the estate, the chaos finally eased off and the whole place fell into a calm hush. As Baba breaks it down, it's crystal clear she's dealing with plain mana depletion. Sold must have overdone the magic, and that's why he passed out, but then she stops. He tells them to stay calm because once he gets some real rest, he'll be totally fine. Tilty stands there, just like in Siluria, posted by his bed, watching over him as he falls asleep. Like, points out how messed up it is that Sol can even experience mana depletion at all, since he's not even supposed to use magic. So that's where things get really interesting. So that wild sword technique has to be it because he swears it's honestly a mystery how that guy pulls out that kind of power, like leaving. Siluria just stands there, staring down at him, and softly calls out to her big brother. Sold is sprawled out cold, a towel shoved on his head, and it turns out he didn't pass out for no reason. He collapsed from the brutal strain of using that demon god style. But the kid wouldn't get the full truth about what happened to him until much later. And just as he's sprawled there, the knights crash into the room screaming for the young master and the princess. While Sold is so far gone he can't even register what's happening. He's sprawled on the floor, then Zweig and Audrey come barreling in, panicked out of their minds because they heard what went down and they're desperate to know if he's really okay. So like, he steps in, steadies the room, and tells everyone, Soul just needs real rest, then I'll see him back on his feet. And the panic finally starts to ease. So the guards can finally breathe easy. Zweig's just relieved he's safe, and Audrey urges them all to pray he heals fast. But then Zweig totally pivots and starts talking like, yeah, somehow we got that thing back you asked for. And he just flashes her a cool thumbs up and a grin like he's got the whole situation locked down. Tilty just stood there, jaw dropped, desperately trying to make sense of what they'd actually uncovered. Until she spots Zweig lifting this huge glowing crystal in the air, she blurts out, so that's the magic stone? And Zweig goes, yep, you nailed it. Adrian's wigs flash with all the loot as he recounts how they bagged the magic stone right after the Black Dragon fell, and it turns out this little score is a monster payday worth a cool billion at minimum. So, Like decided to cash in that money and foot the bill for the city's repairs because that stone officially belongs to him. Tilty just stood there, totally frozen, trying to process the massive scale of everything. Like her brain couldn't keep up, until she finally snaps back to reality and straight up tells them she's got a real request to make. The knights get completely blindsided by her sudden, no jokes, seriousness, especially Zweig, who looks utterly shocked, and even the light itself flickers in confusion, stuck wondering what Titi could possibly want next. Tilty locks her gaze straight ahead, eyes blazing with unshakable determination. With the chaos behind them, the rest of the town goes still beneath a sky packed with glittering stars. Meanwhile, at the forge, Frey can't sleep. She's wide awake, pounding her anvil with relentless hammer blows. Frey halts her work, snaps her goggles up, and instantly wonders who on earth would dare to show up at the forge this late. She swings the door open and freezes. There's Tilty, cart in hand, staring right at her as he demands to know what on earth is going wrong. Tilty just smirks and brings up the promise they made, and right behind her, Lake stands there beaming like he's secretly celebrating himself. Frey's jaw slams open, and she looks absolutely wrecked by whatever they're showing her. Turns out they dragged that massive magic stone straight into her shop, and she can't even process what she's seeing. Tilty's practically vibrating with joy now that she finally stormed into Frey's place with the goods. Frey's breathing turns fast as she finally clocks it. Tilty didn't just stumble on those stones, she brought every single one of them, and it's only then that it hits her. Tilty drops into a deep bow, practically pleading with Frey to forge a special sword for her big brother, using those stones. She goes dead serious, pointing out that regular blades snap on the spot because they can't possibly keep up with his insane skill. Even when his gear betrays him, he still throws himself into the fight with everything he's got because he'll do whatever it takes to keep everyone safe. Tilty keeps spilling her soul as she stays bowed, begging him to keep pushing right up until he drops in total collapse. But she knows the moment he truly has a magic stone sword, he'll finally stop pulling punches and go all out. She admits that wanting this is basically asking for a fortune, but she just keeps begging over and over until Frey finally gives in. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew just stands there, staring as she throws herself at the fight, pouring every last bit of strength into saving her brother. Siluria sounded crushed as she told them Tilty's mansion was still half in ruins, and now they were staring down a mountain of cash they barely had. But Like shoots him a look, dead serious, and tells him, at the end of the day, it all comes down to money. Ainz and Audrey jump in, shouting that Sold's sword has saved a mountain of lives. Then they hit their next point, and Siluria makes it crystal clear this guy's about to save a whole lot more people down the road. Tilty's eyes start to tear up as the truth hits her. Some kind of value is priceless, and no amount of money could ever replace it, so with a massive grin, she whips around to the blacksmith and shouts, go on, use every last magic stone we've got. Sold really earns every bit of this because he's been proving to everyone over and over that he's worth the fight. Between Tilty's heartfelt plea and Rake's sharp planning, everything finally starts to move. Rick shoves the massive magic stone into Frey's hands, and as the blacksmith studies it, she blurts that the magic packed inside is downright wild, and then smirks like, yeah, this job is about to wreck her in the best way. Tilty locks eyes with her and pleads, use that power, build the sword, so Frey So Frey glances back at her, remembering how Tilty looked totally pathetic the first time they met back when she was nothing compared. All because she's battling for her big brother, and now she wears that tough expression like armor. She cups Tilty's head and tells her, leave it to me, then swears she'll forge the greatest sword anyone's ever laid eyes on. But she tells Tilty to make Saldo stop wasting his days and wake up. Tilty beams a huge smile, then tells her, thank you for everything. When Tilty comes back to mind, it's almost scary she's gotten way stronger while everyone's been looking the other way. By the very next morning, the entire town crowds into the square, desperate to hear the truth of what just happened. Like steps onto the stage beside Siluria and blasts the crowd with the news. Dagora hit them yesterday, but now they can finally breathe easy and rest. He screams at the top of his lungs that he's killed Dagora so loud the whole crowd can't miss it. They straight up lose their minds cheering erupts. Prayers pour out, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief because the villain is finally, truly gone for good. They're still howling chants for Like and Siluria, cheering that victory like it's the greatest miracle the town has ever seen. Everyone's screaming that Like is a hero and calling blessings over the Hartman family, while Siluria just stands there taking every bit of it in like it's all unreal. But Like turns his back on the crowd and tells them he didn't pull this off by himself because the real savior of them all is someone else. He was the one who stepped forward when Dagor struck, and at that moment, it looked like all hope was gone for good. He explains that right before the attack, some wild demonic dimension tore open and they even had to fight a legendary dragon. Light fires up the crowd, spilling the details of a brutal life or death showdown with the Black Dragon. And even with them around, he finally drops the act, admitting his own legs turned to ice from fear the moment it happened. But then he lets everyone in. There was a friend standing right there, pushing him to find the courage to finally take that all-important first step forward. And he describes this kid who was way smaller than him and couldn't even cast a single spell, yet still clung to his own path like it was destiny. Explaining how the boy grabbed a sword, trained day after day until he was unstoppable, and refused to let a single hardship break him because he's the real hero. He actually saved the town, so he steps up, points him out, and gets the whole crowd staring. He belts out his name at the very top of his lungs, yelling to reveal the Ranger family's son sold as Ranger. He shoots his fist up and demands everyone cheer for the guy who just risked his life and is now laid up resting. And the entire town erupts, screaming Lord Sold's name and hailing him as the hero of the place. The crowd keeps roaring for the Ranger family, but Sold suddenly realizes that one speech just turned him into a legend. Back in the mountains, Gallant is out in the fields working like it's any normal day, totally clueless, while his wife Muro keeps calling for him to finally take a break as his reputation explodes all around him. At the ceremony, he cranks the energy right back up and tells the crowd, Sold isn't the only hero you should be cheering. Then he makes it crystal clear his sister was there too, fighting side by side with him. He storms through the whole town and thrusts Tilty into the light, screaming for everyone to stand up and cheer for her. Then boom, the crowd snaps to attention and the spotlight locks onto Tilty. The whole town erupts, screaming at the top of their lungs, chanting, Long live Lady Tilty and long live the Ranger siblings. Like those legends just stole the spotlight and claimed it forever. Tilty flashed a small grin as she realized it all was part of Liko's master plan to win the whole town over. So now any enemy trying to mess with her has a brutal uphill fight. With the Hartman name soaring higher than ever, every corrupt noble's reputation is crumbling fast, and the crowd's roar just hammers the bad guys even harder. Walger Debbie Hip storms back to his place, clutching his head like it's going to explode, and screaming curses at the Hartmans and the Rangers for ruining everything. Rage rattles through him as he swears to himself that only his family can truly rule the town, but the truth starts slamming into him, one painful second at a time. He can't wrap his head around it. Those townspeople are totally brushing him off to gush over a bunch of brats. And the more he stews over it, the less he can figure out how everything went sideways like this. His face is practically turning purple as he seethes. He pins the whole disaster on Dagora for going rogue and calling the shots on his own. Walger snaps into a full meltdown, yanking at his hair and drenched in sweat, screaming in his head, Why am I being blamed? I swear I did nothing wrong. A sharp voice slices through his whining, bluntly pinning the blame on him while a mysterious fur-lined cloaked figure strides into the room. The visitor leans in and reminds Walger this is it, his absolute last chance, and when the noble finally looks up, a terrified squeak rips straight out of him. Tilty looks up and boom, his brother looms there like a storm cloud, barking that Walger still managed to bungle the Dark Priestess's capture, forcing the noble to drop to his knees and beg his master for mercy. He glares at Walger with icy, razor-sharp eyes, spits out that he's totally useless, so that's why. He had to step in and deal with everything himself because Walger couldn't pull it off alone. Walger stays down on his knees, panicking out loud, screaming that he's not to blame, claiming the Hartman family destroyed everything. Tilty's brother lets out a nasty little laugh, snaps, "Very well," and pivots away like he's already locked onto his next move, leaving the noble cowering behind him. At the Hartman estate, Tilty gets blindsided by something out of nowhere. And while her brother is still talking about the Dark Priestess watching over everything for a while, the tension snaps tight. From the balcony, the masked man leans in and warns, "This darkness isn't slowing down, it's multiplying, and it's sucking on the emotions of everyone caught in it." The narrator leans in and reveals the wild truth. Siluria's power didn't just hold up during the Dagora chaos, it skyrocketed. And the closer she gets, the more ferocious this is going to get. Back at the mansion, Walger is completely baffled and blurts, "How did the master make Dagora lose his mind?" Tilty's brother tells him to stay calm because he's got one clear question on his lips. He asks Walger straight up if he still wants the job of running this town, and Walger answers without a single pause, yes. Then the masked man steps in and promises to hand him the power to rule it all, talking about the power of darkness, leaving Walger more lost than ever. Then Tilty's brother leans in and says he'll flip Walger's greed against him to make it all happen, so he stretches his hand toward the noble. As he keeps rambling about that dark power, Walger snaps into panic, claws at the air, and screams for his master. That creepy black energy starts flooding his eyes as the voice inside his head demands he grow it, pushing him toward a terrifying endgame leading to then a horrific scream tears through the mansion, blasting across every wall. From the window, Tilty's brother clocks it instantly, the young swordsman who sold himself. He's the missing piece that's about to spark Tilty's rise. Tilty's brother just stands there, locked in thought, obsessed with that sword ranger. Because the power from his magic blade looks way too much like darkness. He smirks and tells them the truth is coming soon, laughing under his breath at whatever wild thing the next experiment is about to unleash. Back at the house, Sold is still slumped and knocked out in bed. And when he finally rips awake, he realizes too late that a whole new disaster is already beginning. He lies there with his eyes shut, replaying it all, realizing he never had a single clue what was about to hit him next. At the blacksmith shop, the lights are still blazing deep into the night, and the ring of a hammer smashing metal keeps cutting through the silence. Deep inside, Frey grinds through her work, snapping about how stubborn that magic stone is, but she refuses to quit. She hurls her hammer up into the air, dares the stone to give her trouble because she's forging it no matter what, and with a wild, determined stare, she swears she'll forge this into the greatest sword the world has ever seen. As Sol dozes peacefully, Frey's voice rings in the air, promising him to sit tight and wait while she cooks up something wild. 3 days have passed since they toppled Dagora, and Tilty and Siluria are standing there with faces set like they're bracing for the next hit. Inside the room, Siluria snaps her gaze to the bed and blurts out that her big brother isn't waking up at all, while she digs deep, puts on a brave smile, and tells Tilty that Sold will get better. Then Tilty can only nod and agree. Sold tells the others he's still dead to the world, fast asleep through all of it, and he had absolutely no idea a brand new danger was already creeping in on them just then. Then Zweig suddenly crashes into the room, roaring that the young master is calling for both of them right this second. Siluria demands to know what happened to her brother, but Zweig just erupts, "They're back and out." Outside, the town's a full-on disaster. People sprint for their lives as flames erupt everywhere. The townspeople shriek as the fiends surge in, and there are way too damn many for anyone to stop, but old stories swear that if a human gets corrupted by a cursed tool, they don't just change, they transform into those things called Magan. Like drops the truth on the girls, there's this imagination that looks exactly like Dog, and it's tearing the town apart right now. Inside the office, the night guard bursts in and warns that someone's using cursed tools again, and then boom, he snaps into action, barking that the Hartman family's mightiest forces are about to slam the brakes and keep the damage from spreading any further. He whips his gaze to his team and fires the question to Audrey, Zweig, and Silria. "Can I count on you?" And each of them snaps back with an instant, wholehearted yes to the plan. Everything is flying by so fast that, and like snaps his focus to Tilty, telling her, "I need your strength for this fight too." Tilty's totally pumped to jump in. She leans over and tells Reich she's absolutely in, while as Light barks the last commands, he tells everyone that he and Ains will run things from the mansion, while the rest of the team storms out to face the chaos. Smoke and flames rip through the town as the assault crushes in harder and harder, and the locals start panicking and snapping at the worst possible time, but the knights throw themselves into action, pushing everyone to evacuate and get out safe. Right in the middle of the street, 3 Megans burst in and start smashing everything in their path. The Megan creatures flood the streets, cackling as they swagger through their plan to wipe out everything, and the lead monster lunges straight into the camera like it's starving for destruction, staring down the city and craving every last bit of mayhem. The Hartman Knights don't waste a second. They blast the beast right away with an Aqua Lance plus a Rock Axe combo, and that blasts the creature backwards, slamming it flat on its back right in the middle of Stone Street. While the Knights regrouped, one guy muttered that the demon looked downright creepy, then his partner just shrugged like it meant nothing, insisting these weaklings were nothing compared to the black dragon they'd faced before. They think the battle's over until the monster's clawed hand on the ground starts twitching like it's about to rise again. One of the knights barely gets a chance to blink before the creature blasts out a massive surge of energy, slamming it straight into them. The blast crashes into the buildings right behind them, detonating with a massive roar and hurling splinters of wood and shards of glass through the air. As the knights scramble for cover, they stare in disbelief. Then one of them blurts, "This has to be a joke." Because the monster staggers back upright, and it's still charging at them, its entire head blasted clean off and all. The monster just won't stay down, and Siluria realizes it's got the same stubborn bite as that demon Dogura, so she steps forward, fires off her magic, and screams for an airlock right as her windlock spell slams the creature into a towering, spinning vortex. Siluria screams for Tilty to take the lead, and Tilty's already chomping at the bit to jump in and throw their support. With a fierce thrust of her hands, she orders the darkness to smash their foes, and huge dark claws burst out, snaring her target right as she surges forward, snags them in the wind trap, and blasts the monsters until shadow and wind magic swallow them whole while the knights stand there watching. The Hartman Knights are freaking out over how unstoppable Tilty is, while Tilty just giggles. Meanwhile, Siluria is already dissecting the fight, convinced these demons are way weaker than Dagora. The monsters are still snarling and clawing to fight back, and Siluria snaps that 2 more of them are left so she can finish them off. Tilty's fired up. She declares she'll give it everything as she sprints forward beside Siluria to smash this fight wide open. But right then, a deep voice snaps, "What do you think you're doing?" And every single one of them freezes the instant a massive armored boot slams the ground. It's Mobrib rolling in with the rest of the Debbie Hip Knights full force, and they look like they're about to unleash real trouble. Siluria spots him instantly. Mobrib, the Hartman Knights, lock onto the truth. He's a royal guard for the Devahip family who finally shows up, tells them to quit stalling and team up to save the town, then right in the middle of his speech, a group snaps, "What are you doing?" because his face contorts and then extra eyeballs sprout across his skin. Yeah, like that. Well, while Tilty and Siluria stare in total disbelief, praying what they're seeing isn't real as the knights spiral into panic because one of Mobrub's massive eyes bulges as he rasps out one last cheer for Lord Walger, and then blam, one massive flash of light erupts, and everyone's left staring like, was that the cursed tool's power, right? Right as the group scrambles back, a giant clawed arm rips through the air and smashes the spot where the humans had been. The mysterious Mobrib starts snarling, screaming that Lord Walger will crush everything, while the other knights point at Hartman as the enemy. And the transformation's done now. They're nothing but mindless beasts packed with way too many mouths and eyes. Tilty and the rest finally see it. Everything's gone wrong because every last guard has transformed into a demon. Siluria struggles to even get a sentence out as the nightmare explodes in front of her, screaming for her brother while, as Tilty's crew crumbles piece by piece, the narrative suddenly yanks the spotlight back to what's going on. For now, Sold's manor looks calm from the outside, like nothing's about to explode. But inside his room, he's sprawled in bed like he's knocked out until reality smacks him with a crazy, weird dream and it gets worse. And his eyes suddenly shoot wide open like he's just spotted something that blows his mind, which drags us straight into the vision, where 2 giant spirit beasts loom right over him. Then the creatures start speaking to him, dropping a shocking truth. The power they share isn't divine at all, it's demon power. They slam him with a brutal warning. The more he taps into that strength, the more his body gets claimed by the dark and he's done being in control. And before he knows it, he'll turn into a monster forced to throw away what's left of his humanity for good. Beasts crowd in one final time, towering over him as they demand, "Soul Doll Ranger, what's your move next?" Spirit beasts kept hammering Sold, insisting it didn't matter whether he became a demon or whether he ever clung to his humanity. But Saul doesn't even look shaken, he just shrugs and says, "My fate's been locked in for ages." Standing tall between those 2 monsters, he shouts that his only mission is to protect his evil sister. He thrusts his hand toward the spirits and barks, "Shut up, move with me." The beast looked him dead in the eye as if it finally understood his resolve, and it roared that this was the real power of the demon god style. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Frey storms into the Ranger family manor with a haul of gear, and she barrels through to the front door, yelling at the top of her lungs, demanding to know where Sora's hiding by. Baba and the house guards get absolutely blindsided. Panic takes over as they scramble to block her, peppering her with frantic questions like, "What do you need?" So Frey casually drops that she's a friend, then pushes to be shown to his room right after Baba warns her he still needs to rest. She won't hear a word. She barrels into the bedroom, rips the door wide, and screams that he's still fast asleep. Sold is finally up and moving. He plants himself by the window, stretches his arm wide, and flexes to test every bit of his strength. Frey pops in out of nowhere with a huge grin. winks at him, and blurts that she can finally see he's awake while Baba just freezes on the spot, utterly stunned. Sold flashes her a warm smile and says, I just literally opened my eyes. And that's when she strides forward, thrusts out a long cloth-wrapped package, and tells him, I finished the thing I promised you. Frey beams with pride as she tells him, I made this just for you. Looks like Sold is totally buzzing. He's repeating that line over and over, yelling that this sword is only meant for him, and then Bamid S revealed to be the legendary weapon Frey the Sword of Soul, the luminous blade, the magic light sword. Sold stares in total shock, blurting out whether she's really serious about that name, then immediately turns around to marvel at how light and beautiful it feels. Frey plants her arms and smirks like she's sure the glowing blade will answer his magic sword style, only for Soul to realize what's coming as turns out this is the legendary final weapon you only unlock at the very end. So yeah, it's the most powerful sword on the planet. Frey tells Saul to handle the new weapon with care, and for a split second it totally catches him off guard and when she admits it, yeah, even she, the one who forged the sword, has no real clue how far its power can go. Frey's eyes flicker with worry as she blurts that she's praying the blade won't stir up too violently to his magic and turn into a threat against him. Saul just stands there gripping the sword, telling her, Don't worry, I've got this. Like he's already got the whole thing under control. He starts staring at the future, imagining colossal monsters and dragons waiting to crush him, already knowing that with this brand new magic light sword in hand, he's going to cut straight through anything that dares to get in his way. Seeing his confidence, Frey couldn't resist flashing him a proud little smile, then she turns the page and he barks at him to get moving then. Boom! A shout tears through the air from outside a monster's hit town, and everything starts unraveling fast. The moment it vanished, thick smoke blasted into the sky, and flames were already roaring up from the nearby buildings, while, as a wave of monsters swarms the streets, panic explodes, people scream and sprint for cover. Zweig screams that they're in deep trouble because the odds are stacked against them, but the guy beside him snaps, Stay locked in, hold the line. Siluria bursts forward and yells that she's got Tilty. She'll protect her no matter what, while Tilty can only stare in shock and shout her name back over and as one of the masked bandits slams in with a blood-curdling scream, yelling for them to die for Lord Walga when suddenly a gigantic energy-built head plummets out of the sky, blasting the whole battlefield with pure shock. Siluria shot her gaze up at the massive blast scale, eyes wide, because she instantly knew exactly what that terrifying thing was, while the Black Dragon's flame slams into the ground with jaw-dropping force, shattering everything in its path. The blast tears through the street, blasting a huge smoking crater, and it hurls the bandits flying every which way and Siluria blurts out a thrilled shout the second she spots who's standing there. Tilty shouts Soled's name as Siluria roars for her big brother. Then he finally arrives, all set to throw down, and Saul just stands there, those dark face markings blazing, and he flashes a confident smirk like the win is already locked in. The bandits snap and start yelling at the kid for wrecking their plans right then. Things go sideways, but Saul doesn't even blink. He raises his blade to the sky and demands the spirit. And the sword answers him. Then he unleashes a brutal ice wolf flash, frozen energy ripping through the entire area. Sold exploded forward like a streak of lightning, slicing straight through the heart of the enemy squad and taking everyone down in his wake. The Hartman Knights erupt into cheers as Siluria charges ahead with a massive grin blazing across her face. When the ice crystals finally settle, she rockets into Sold's arms for a massive hug, and he just stands there, frozen sword in hand, stunned. Siluria bursts into tears because he's finally safe, and Soul just flashes her a soft smile, whispering that he's sorry for freaking everyone out, especially Tilty. The whole group swarms around him, and Zweig and Ainz practically roar how thrilled they are that he's finally awake and back in the fight. Sold locks eyes with his crew and blurts out that he's finally breathing again. Siluria and the rest are safe. Zweig can't stop raving about how wild those finishing moves were, but Audrey's way more stunned that the sword didn't snap after all that raw power. Frey studies the wreckage with a cool smile and says, It's over. Finally, we're done. And he just keeps nodding like, yeah, I get it. This is exactly how it all went down. While Siluria beams at both of them with this giant grin. That sword is unreal. It shrugs off the Ice Wolf's deadly frost and the Black Dragon's raging flames without snapping, and Sold lifts the blade up for all to see and declares, loud and clear, that this weapon was forged for the Magan style alone. And he stands there like a hero, grinning as he tells the knights, this is the only sword of its kind in the entire world. Siluria is practically bursting with joy as she tells Frey, I really did forge the best sword just like I promised. Frey tells Sold it's not only the weapon his own techniques have leveled up too. Then Sold nods, agreeing that this sword is rock-solid dependable. But then Light's face tightens with worry because why in the world would Imagine show up here at all? Right nearby, the town is getting shredded, fires erupt everywhere, the knights bolt toward the chaos, and so Ainz stares at the smoke curling over the buildings and he decides he's got to get back to the young master's side right now. Audrey spots Walger's soldiers slipping into Imagine's, and his mind snaps to one terrifying thought. Did their leader do this? Drake's soul finally clicks Debbie. Hip's family is behind this, then Siluria lets out a horrifying scream as she catches a flash of what's coming. As she crumples into tears like hears a voice calling her. Then her clairvoyance hits, and whatever she's seeing terrifies her to the core. And she blurts that the whole town is in real trouble, like in serious, can't ignore danger, so everyone's left to scramble and ask, "What exactly are you seeing?" In her vision, a giant shadow with blazing eyes slams over the buildings, and it feels like the entire town is about to be swallowed whole. Sold shoots a fearless glare and lifts his sword high, gripping his power tight like he's about to slice through whatever comes for them next. Meanwhile, at the main noble mansion in the heart of the city, storm clouds began to creep over the rooftops. Footsteps hammer through the halls, boots clacking hard as they sprint straight toward the office, pure urgency driving every step. Those massive double doors get kicked open with a thunderous bang, and then he storms into the room, roaring Waldger's name only for the noble to stay planted behind his desk, calmly nursing a glass of wine. Waldger glares at him with pure disgust, calls him a brat, and rips into him for barging into the office without an invite. Yeah, the guy is absolutely furious. The guy doesn't back down. He blasts out loud that Waldger's being rude too, because he's finally hit his limit and he's done with whatever Waldger's been pulling. He jabs a finger at the noble and demands answers, swearing he's got reports that Waldger's own people are the ones stirring up all the trouble in town, and Waldger just glares at him, pure annoyance on his face, and mutters that this nuisance has turned out to be... Then the guy blurts, "Why haven't you left town yet?" And it hits him like a punch, so he fires back, "What do you mean?" Suddenly, Waldger flips out. He screams at the top of his lungs that it's all Like's fault for trying to play the hero and acting like some flawless ruler. He roars that the Debbie Hip family are the real power in this town, while Like and Ainz just stares at him shaking his head as he calls the guy out as absolute scum. He can't believe he's actually saying it now, but when he tells Waldger the truth, it's game over for that corrupt noble. For one tense second, the room goes dead silent. Then Waldger bursts out with a filthy, pig-like snort laugh, mocking him for thinking anything is ever really over. He leans in and tells them, "This is only the beginning." And when they spot the sweat beading on Ain's faces, realization hits hard. Something massive is about to explode. Waldger grips the edge of his desk, eyes wide because the power he's been using slips out of his control, and then this disgusting, multi-eyed, fleshy blob erupts from his hand way faster than he can deal with until it's like, as if a whole crew just froze in shock. They stood there staring because the noble was transforming into a full-blown monster right in front of their eyes. Meanwhile, the Sold and the rest of the crew are hauling it through the town streets, sprinting toward the mansion as fast as humanly possible, even as Paul Soled presses Siluria hard. "Are you 100% sure about that location?" And when she swears she's positive, they waste no time and keep pushing forward. But Tilty says she can sense a massive shadow looming over Waldger's place so huge it could flatten the whole town if they don't rush right now. She snarls that she'll never forgive what's been done, then turns to the guys and demands they shut it down right now before it spirals out of control. He slams the skids to a sudden stop, barks, "Wait!" and points ahead, then his face tightens because that gut feeling is getting dangerously, horribly bad. Waldger's mansion starts to rattle this whole section, screams with the shaking like an earthquake is smashing just that one spot. Then boom, the roof gets blown apart as a towering dark monster with glowing eyes rips through the stone, roaring like it's about to smash everything in its path. Sold and the whole crew freeze, staring at the mansion in pure disbelief as he blurts out in shock, and then Light rockets through the gates, screaming for everyone to fall back while Sold realizes he and Ainz are barely clawing their way out. But instead of calming down, Light keeps yelling that the monster right in front of them is Waldger, and that the guy used a cursed tool to make the switch. Sold is just standing there, frozen in place, trying to process how any human could turn into something like that so fast. From up here, the entire crew looks like little specks as they line up before the record, utterly swallowed, dwarfed completely by... The giant monster starts growling like it owns the place, snarling that this town is its territory and nobody's getting it. It's grown huge now. It's a full-on demon, skull-faced and staring out with a giant eye planted right in the center of its chest. It unleashes a bone-rattling roar, declaring that Tilty is his right there, towering over the crumbling wreckage of the mansion. Staring up at the chaos, Sold's face twists with pure disgust as he spits that it's a loathsome demon, but the monster doesn't care. He just stares down at them like they're trash, ready to wipe them off the map. Sold shot into action, blasting a scorching wind at the enemy, shouting he won't let this happen then. Like, Eric slams in beside him, roaring that the monster's a fool if it thinks it owns this place because keeping this town safe is literally their job. Sold blurted Like's name while Zweig and Siluria stared from the sidelines, fear ripping through them as they screamed for their big brother. As Ainz snaps out commands, the knights snap to attention and shout back as they scramble into formation because they're about to charge the moment they follow the young master. The whole crew shrinks into the rubble like tiny ants as that massive demon looms over everything, dwarfing them completely, making them... The monster's stare locks onto them, and those empty dead eyes make it feel even more terrifying. Everyone bands together and unleashes a giant combined assault magic and steel flying at the beast with everything they've got. Waldger just stands there, calling them pests like a tiny thorn, while the crew stares in shock because their best shot didn't even leave a scratch. The monster snarls for them to get lost, and this eerie light starts gathering deep in its throat as it prepares to unleash something. And then boom, it unleashes a colossal energy beam that obliterates everything standing in its way. The monster towers over the ruins, belts out a filthy, thunderous laugh, while, as the knights barrel through the dust, they scream for updates. Did the young master and the princess make it out? Like tells them they're safe for now, everyone dumped their magic into a single shield, but Sold can't stop staring at the sheer force they're up against. Sold yanks his ugly clothes into place, snarling at Waldger that he's a monster for ditching his humanity just to feed his twisted cravings. But Waldger doesn't care. He grins and swears he'll wipe every last speck of trash out of this town. He unleashes yet another gigantic blast, tearing through the city like it's made of paper, and they just stand there, stunned as the beam chews through everything. The entire area erupts in a roaring explosion. Yet the monster still stands there, just a black silhouette, framed by the blazing fire. Buildings start collapsing left and right, and everyone bolts in every direction, scrambling just to stay alive, and the local families are completely losing it, howling in tears and screaming as their home gets smashed to pieces. Like Tilty and stand shoulder to shoulder, staring out at the ruined town where everyone's suffering, it's pure chaos. And finally snaps, screaming Walger's name at the top of his lungs. That giant monster just lingers there, cackling like it owns the world, while people everywhere sprint for their lives and yell for help as terror takes over. And then boom, something enormous swings in out of nowhere. A colossal flame dragon crashes onto its neck, biting down hard as the neck starts. Then suddenly, the Sold bursts out of nowhere, sprinting through the air and roaring Waldger's name as he throws everything he's got into his strike. He slashes with his black dragon flame, then that wildfire barrels in and fully engulfs the monster's head. The monster's head snaps back from the brutal impact, and Sold lands cleanly on a nearby roof. Lights stunned and frozen. Then Siluria screams for her big brother as everyone watches the fight explode. Sold freezes in place and quips, "So how'd that look?" But his eyes already snap back, hunting for proof he really landed enough damage, and then turns out, the monster still isn't finished. Thick black blood starts pouring from its neck while it just stands there. The monster unleashes a brutal, earth-shaking roar that rips through the whole area, and it's totally out of control, like the world's about to break. He Sold watches from the rooftop while the beast's neck sealed up before his eyes, and he blurted that he finally gets what's really happening. He's got the monster figured out, so yeah, he just clocked it. This monster is the Dark Giant, and no matter how hard you hit it, it keeps clawing back to life. Solde's heart drops when he realizes this isn't just some enemy. It's the final boss the villain controls at the very end of the game. And he can't believe this is happening here of all places. He's stuck wondering if saving Tilty is what flipped the whole timeline, because the fate of this world is moving and twisting way faster than he ever imagined, leaving him reeling. He found himself trapped because in the game, the hero blasted the fight with holy power and won. But Soldner knows he's got nothing like that in his pocket right now. He starts plotting using Tilty's dark power to erase the monster, just like he did against Agura. But he snaps it back instantly because he knows that kind of power is way too deadly to toy with, and if that darkness keeps swelling past where it already is, it could be the final curtain for her. And Sold is terrified that this move will rocket Tilty straight toward the villainous future he's desperately trying to stop. Sold braces on the roof, fighting to keep his legs steady, swearing he'll beat whatever destiny throws at him. Then his eyes snap around and he mutters that his sword has to be here somewhere, but from the cliff, the city looks like it's already been wrecked. Then the Dark Giant strolls right through walls, smashing houses to rubble, while that mysterious leader just stands on the edge, watching the chaos unfold. The masked man stares at the wreckage and grins, calling it splendid, locking eyes with Mr. Waldger as he says, Walger's twisted urge to dominate everything just dragged in a gigantic demonic force, and with a creepy grin on his face, he leans in and declares, the real experiment is just getting started. He peers down at the people trembling in the street and shouts for Tilty, naming her the Priestess of Darkness. Then he blurts out his doubts about how she can possibly fight off that power, while Tilty just stood frozen in the wreckage, shaking in pure terror, tears streaming as she watched the whole world crumble in front of her. Nearby, Siluria is falling apart too. She's sobbing, clutching him tight, as the guy who's hanging on looks seconds away from snapping, watching his city get wrecked. Even the knights are shrieking as they try to claw their way back into the fight. But the sheer scale of the attack crushes them because it gets terrifying when the monster unleashes a blast that flattens the buildings around it. Parents snatch their kids and sprint for their lives while people get slammed to the ground everywhere. Tilty pleads for the nightmare to stop, eyes blazing wide, tears spilling, but all she gets back is a sinister, dark chuckle snapping through the chaos. Tilty stands there, trembling as dark energy surges up around her. Then she blurts out that she can't take this anymore and that she'll never forgive them for what they're doing. Tilty snaps, she screams as a dark mark suddenly blooms on her forehead. A towering monster of wood and swirling shadows erupts from the ground. Tilty's standing right on its head and she screams again that she'll never forgive them, and he drops back onto the ground, utterly speechless, while Siluria stands right beside him, eyes wide, trembling, demanding to know what in the world that massive thing even is. A half-bodied giant looms over the city ruins, standing so tall it looks ripped straight from a nightmare. Nier, still selling watches from the rooftop, stares as the wooden giant clashes with the bone monster, then it hits him. What this is, and he just can't. He can't believe the dark power blasting off Tilty right now. It's even stronger than he ever imagined. But that bone giant refuses to retreat, planting itself in the middle of all the chaos and daring anyone to stop it. Tilty leans forward from the giant's head, points into the dark, and calls the shadows to answer then, with tears kept pouring down her face as she screamed, begging the monster to lunge in and destroy its target. The dark giant rockets forward and smashes a monster punch straight into the bone giant's face, cracking bone and that bone giant rips out a brutal, agonized scream as the impact's force slams through it and starts tearing it apart. Tilty stands atop her summon's head, staring down as the whole battlefield turns into wreckage under her while that giant looms over everything. She's breaking down in real time, sobbing and screaming at the top of her lungs like, "Just make them vanish, please." On the ground, completely crushed by what he sees, he blurts out, "The dark giant," and insists its power is on a whole other level. And every time the dark giant even taps his opponent, Walger's monster gets hacked down piece by piece, like wondering if the darkness's power to wipe things out has only grown stronger while that bone giant keeps shrieking in agony. Siluria tilts her head up and blurts that Tilty's actually incredible for pulling this off, but her face is screaming worry about something she just can't shake. She replays it in her head how she could barely move the arms of darkness back then, and now she's got way more power than ever. She realizes the whole scene is off the charts because the giant's entire body finally slams into existence right in the middle of the city. Tilty stands on the giant's head, arms flung wide, shouting at the top of her lungs that this is exactly what she wanted. She looks completely wrecked, rambling about how gorgeous this dark power is as it finally crashes down. She cheers for the giant, screaming for it to keep pushing, turning every last drop of despair into something so loud it drowns her enemies while as she barks the order, she dares the darkness to gulp up everything in sight. Tears pour down her cheeks as she rips into a scream how the enemy is stomping out human lives, and she vows she'll never, ever forgive them. The dark giant hoists its massive, spiraling hand high into the sky, tilting it for a dramatic moment while it stares down with a tiny figure on its shoulder looking almost swallowed up by the shadow. The bone monster squeals so pathetically it can barely breathe because it's completely helpless to stop what's about to hit next. The dark giant swings a bone-crushing punch that lands dead on the bone monster's head, tearing right through it. And from the sheer impact, he slammed his strike so hard it shattered the creature's jaw into pieces. Like and Siluria are trapped on the ground, staring in total disbelief as Tilty unleashes pure, jaw-dropping power. Like he's watching the chaos unfold, demanding, "Why is all this happening?" While one figure, so-called Pride, stands rock solid in the smoky haze. Tilty snaps and sobs, screaming at him, "Why are you in my way?" while her voice rips the air as she yells for her brother. Saul blurts out Tilty's name as he stands alone in the crater, sword raised. Then he does whatever comes next. But he grabs her heart and tells her she has to stay strong because he's promising right there that he'll never let her slip into darkness again.